Are we live, Neil?
It is.
Yeah, just. All right. Attention, we are starting. I'll call this meeting to order. Welcome everyone to tonight's select board meeting. That's my first time using the gavel. Monday, June 10th. I'm Sabrina Dunlap. We have Ken Trom, Stephen Whitley, Thomas Lapoma, and Jeff Donahoe here with us tonight. So the full board. I see Points of Pride is not on here, but is that, we're skipping over, jumping right into, okay. So
I would note that we did the cabin appreciation for all the volunteers who put so much work into the Kimball cabins, and it was a great day. We avoided the rain. There were 30 of them there. It was great.
yeah, thank you for putting that on. Well-deserved appreciation. Okay, so first up is administrative. We have approval of the consent agenda.
I'll move we approve the consent agenda of June 10, 2024.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, first on minutes, we have approval of the public meeting minutes from May 28th, 2024.
So moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, and we have three non-publics. First is approval of the non-public meeting minutes from May 28th, 2024, session 1.
I'll move and note they're sealed.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, approval of non-public meeting minutes of May 28th, 2024, session 2.
I'll move and note they are also sealed.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. And finally, approval of the non-public meeting minutes of May 28th, 2024, session 3.
I'll finally move and note again it's sealed.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay. All right, so we have two items under public appointments tonight. First up at 5:30, we have a public hearing, which is related to an update to the refuse disposal ordinance and transfer station fee schedule. That is our first public appointment. That is actually a public hearing that we are required to hold in order to update the ordinance. And then at 6 o'clock, we have a public input session on the pay by bag program. So if people for the 5:30 public hearing could limit their remarks to the updates to the refuse disposal ordinance and transfer station fee schedule, that would be great. I think some comments might include comments about the green bag, but if you could hold on for comments specifically related to green bags until 6 o'clock, that would be great, or at least until we finish the public hearing. So we will open the public hearing. Anyone online who wishes to speak can raise their hand as well. For the public hearing on the refuse disposal ordinance, if you could come to the mic so we can catch you on video, that would be great, and say your name. We're going to limit comments. We might not need to do that for the ordinance, but we will limit comments to 3 minutes just because there's a lot of people here. So if anyone would like to speak on the refuse disposal ordinance and transfer station fee schedule, now would be the time. Anyone online, feel free to raise your hand. Anyone have comments for the ordinance?
Well, so I'd like a little bit of clarification on the ordinance. We sat here at the end of February, most of us, and talked about the number of what you're going to charge per ton. And it was at $100. And everybody was happy with that at that time. And then some stuff went down, and all of a sudden this came back up as a hot topic. Why did we need to change it?
Okay. So I think when we left that meeting, we had discussed as high as 157, I think. And my memory is when we left that meeting, we landed on 120, but perhaps it was 100. I don't know. But in any event, the purpose of raising that is to try to more accurately reflect the costs that we have. And so the point of landing on that number was trying to be more in line with towns that are around us and also reflect the actual costs we have of
Okay,
dealing with the trash.
but don't we subsidize through taxes towards the trash? Because what it boils down to is, yes, I'm the only commercial hauler that is bringing any volume into the transfer station. So all of our customers pay taxes, our businesses pay taxes, get very little back from the town. So it seems that you are trying to get us to carry some of the cost above and beyond the disposal and transportation of it. But that's still going to be there even if we don't bring the trash. If we went out and all of our residential customers brought their own trash, 400 pounds a week, you're not gonna get a dime for that. So why do we need to, so to speak, gouge towards what the agreement has been for years?
Anyone else like to address this? Thomas, since you're a numbers person, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, so, oh, right over here. I'm trying to, so we've had so many hearings on this that I'm trying to make sure that I'm following the right pattern of where the numbers change throughout time. And just to clarify that the 100 versus everything that we do for the ordinance has to happen in joint with the Webster board. So that initial discussion was initially going to be very, very high. Like the conversation coming out of that meeting with Webster was going to be 170, 157 or somewhere way up there. We decided, I believe it, and if anyone remembers this differently, let me know. But we decided at that point that that wasn't a good option. And so there was no discussed, this is what we're going to change it to, leaving it to then just be whatever it was going to fall back to with whatever it was before. Because if we're not going to change it, it's just going to be whatever it was before. Then going through that post town meeting, going into all the discussions about green bags and going into what the green bag pricing should be, and then having the discussions with the NRA about what their full cost accounting should be, and then trying to make any of these changes with Webster for both the changes to what we did at the town meeting with the agreement between the two towns, but then also with the ordinance. Then those conversations continue where if we're going to make any changes to the fee schedule, let's look at everything in the fee schedule. And then so looking across everything on that, looking at what we had found from other transfer stations, looking at what NRA suggested for what the various fees should be, then working back with Webster to then come up with what all of these numbers should be. And now we're at the point where this is what the two boards could agree upon what that price should be. So I unless anyone remembers the timeline differently, I'm pretty sure that's how we got to where we are now. The taxing versus non-taxing, at the end of the day, no one else is funding the transfer station other than people in town. So whether or not they're paying for it through haulers or whether they're paying through it through taxes, it's the same amount of money that has to be spent by the people in town. Every difference there just comes down to the split between who's paying more or less. This is one of the biggest concerns with green bags, for example, where people who are using green bags, they pay a different proportion than people who aren't using green bags. So I think that trying to discuss like whether or not you're being double taxed or whether or not it's being covered by taxes, it becomes really complicated because while some of that cost is being covered, some of that cost isn't being covered. So if you are bringing in waste like as a hauler, yes, the actual the fee for having it transported out and hauled away, that is just one number, but then there's everything else that has to happen in the transfer station. Like I think a really good example would be maintenance of the scale. Maintenance of the scale is something that has to happen. If we need to pay for a new scale, that might need to happen. If we were only accepting residential waste, that would never occur because we never use the scale. So there are other things associated with the transfer station that everyone needs to pay for beyond just the actual removal of the waste.
Yeah. And I was looking for my notes. So, the NRA had recommended, $150, I believe, and we had discussed 157. Concord, I think, is 155. Bosquen, I have 200. This was from our discussion with Webster. And yes, Thomas, I forgot to mention that we did discuss this and land in a place in conjunction with Webster because we both have to agree. And we felt that this was a fair place to land.
Okay,
I'd also like to add that in the budget that was presented at town meeting for transfer station commercial, there was a footnote, recommended increase in tipping fees to $200 per ton.
which that $200 a ton, this is the first time that's been broadcasted.
It's been in the booklet all along. I
Okay,
would assume
it hasn't been verbally broadcasted. How's that?
Residents don't get that, but
but it's online.
So going back to Thomas about the cost of the upkeep at the transfer station. I think that could be argued on both sides, because the scale, no matter if it was there for charging purposes or your purposes, it's still going to be there. Because you weigh in and weigh out the loads that you are shipping out. So it's not just there for commercial waste to be put over. And at the end of the day, the girls are still gonna be there. The equipment is still going to be there. You're not gonna take it off of I don't know if it's on a 7 or 10 year depreciation program. But it's still going to be there. So I still feel that charging above and beyond where we are covering your tipping fees, the town's tipping fees. Plus at that $100 that was discussed, and it was scratched onto the piece of paper that Neil had on a slide one day. That wasn't quite 10% above your cost. So everything, the whole infrastructure of the transfer station is still going to be there, no matter if we go in there or not. And here again, all of our customers, being Webster or Hopkinton, still pay taxes. So it's still coming from there. I really hope that you guys can think about that, because if you raise to whatever you're talking about now, it's not like our taxes are going to come down any. And if they did, it was such a minute amount, it wouldn't amount to. But thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Sadie Conley, Bassett Mill Road in Hopkinton. My question on you increasing the trash haulers' fees is that's another tax on me. Because as you raise their fees, they're going to raise my fees. So I don't understand why we're doing this. If I bring my trash there, you don't charge me. If I pick up all the trash on my street, you don't charge me. But because I'm hiring somebody to do that for me, not only am I being charged my taxes, not only am I, but my hauler's being charged and my prices are going to go up. So I'm being double taxed.
Can I just make a note?
Yeah.
This- The double tax thing, I think, is gonna come up a lot. The transfer station is not a profit center. So anything that's brought in through revenue,
Then let's raise our taxes to cover it then, if
That-
that's, rather than charging the
I
hauler.
just want to, no, right.
So
I just
we
want to,
can't pick you up from the audience, so I just hope people can just continue to speak into the mic.
So
And so Thomas, finish your point.
any fees that come in through revenue into the transfer station reduce the amount of taxes that need to be raised. So the big issue, and this is, I think, one of the biggest concerns with the green bag program is that unless everyone is using the exact same method, some people will spend more and some people will spend less.
But our taxes are raised to cover our expenses. My hauler lives in town, so he's paying taxes here in town. I'm paying taxes in town. So you're double taxing me. I mean, no matter how you look at it, by increasing their fees, you're increasing my fees.
But
So-
just to be clear, your taxes would then be lower by the same amount.
My taxes in Hopkinton will never be low.
I think, but I also just want to bring us back to the basic point that if you're paying, you are paying for a service. And so we're like, as Thomas said, this is not a profit center. So we're trying to make sure that we adequately cover our costs in conjunction with Webster. And so, yes, it's true that if a cost goes up for the hauler, it's passed on to the consumers, but that's business. That's what you're paying for. You are paying, that's not a town funded business. It is a private business. And we have to make sure that what we charge them covers the costs of disposing all the trash. So, and then this does get complicated because you get into green bags, because if you use green bags, then they're not paying that tipping fee. And so anyway, I don't want to go down that road quite, quite yet, but I just wanted to make that point about this notion of double taxation. Okay.
Bill Palazzolo, Hopkinton Road. I just wanted to bring up, like, for full transparency, the tipping fee schedule that he was talking about. I was here on you guys had like a closed work session where there was no public input, and you discussed at length the tipping fee. And I called in one day and asked this question, but I didn't get any answers. You guys, and I thought it was pretty inappropriate, and it was never addressed. Mr. Donahoe and some other people on the board, after he said it, agreed with him, specifically said the raising of the fee was due to, he didn't like, someone brought a warrant article up, and he specifically linked the raise to the warrant article. And that's a punitive measure against someone for doing nothing wrong. The people here shouldn't have to fear punitive measures for putting warrant articles out. And I didn't know, was that recorded? And everyone should see that, because it was wildly inappropriate, and nobody here corrected it. And I'm up too. So,
Well, I did actually. I said that
I
it
was
was
there.
when comments were made a few months ago, I said it's not appropriate to discuss a business in town that way. And I did say that to Jeff, and I'll let
but I
Jeff
mean,
respond.
that was directly linked to the tipping fee.
So we
raise.
actually, so I just want to correct something. We had been discussing the tipping fee at great length for many, many months. And I believe Jeff made comments related to the warrant article, and what we had been discussing was potentially no longer accepting commercial trash. I believe that that's what it was about. It was not tied to, this was not, the price of the tipping fee was never,
Specifically said he felt betrayed by the warrant article, and it was a punitive measure. We should bring it up and watch it, so we don't have to debate it.
okay. So thank you for your comment. And Jeff, I don't know if you want to say anything. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole on comments that were made months ago and subsequently
I would only say that
corrected.
the warrant article, the petition warrant article actually raised a fiscal concern for the board. We're the fiduciaries of the town, and a petition warrant article was introduced to limit our ability to charge for the service that we provide. And so from a practical perspective, as the fiduciaries for the town, it's our responsibility to try to avoid that issue, to correct that problem. One of the ways to correct that problem would be to not accept commercial hauler waste anymore. And not just an individual company, any commercial waste. And I'm sure that the Mrs. Morrill, I'm sure she's here, would tell you, when she and I talked on the phone, she asked if it was only her company. And I said, no, it's all commercial haulers. If we do this, it's all gone, because we're losing money on every ton. And RRA recommended $150 a ton, and we were at 100. It just didn't make sense. Hi, Arnold.
Hi there, Jeff. My turn?
Yes.
Arnold Coda. I have two questions. For my aged memory, what is the current tipping fee?
Like the current tipping fee to haulers?
Whatever we're talking about, what's the current fee before you raise it up to $120?
70.
70.
It's 70. All right. When was the last time the tipping fee was raised?
2012.
And since then, whether you want to give it to us in dollars or percentage, what has been the increase in our cost to drag the stuff over to wherever?
In 2012, it was probably around $69. I don't remember for sure. Now it is $93 and some cents.
So 50%.
I might have it.
All right.
I'm sorry, 40%.
So that is roughly 50%. The increase in this up to 120 is what percent?
Hundred to 120.
It's what?
100 to 120 is a 20% increase.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Arnold.
Amanda Gilman, 168 Westford Circle. Sabrina, you made a comment a moment ago about, this is where my confusion lies with this tipping fee. The green bags, if the local commercial hauler brings a truckload of green bags in, do they still pay the 100 and new rate tipping fee or no tipping fee if it's all green bags?
If it's a green bag load, there's no tipping fee.
Correct. Okay. And so my concern is that we do continue to support our local business. And so I think that's hugely important if this green bag enforcement is going to happen. But I do also want to echo the owner's point that it is essentially, people are paying for it out of their taxes. And I realize that we have been underfunding perhaps for a long time, and we're trying to correct that problem. But for that local hauler, his clients are paying more. That's a choice. They make that choice. My concern is what that does to our local business or businesses. So I understand that you're trying to correct a problem that hasn't been fixed since 2012. So it's long overdue, and it needs to be increased, but I hope that you continue to do it thoughtfully and protect our local businesses. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
Good evening, everybody. Dave DiPiano, 68 Brookwood Lane. Just a couple points. So the first question is related to, we had said that we want to increase the tipping fees to cover our costs. We just talked about in 2012, the cost to dump is about $70 a ton, costs us about $69 a ton. I think, Neil, you had said it's now about $100 a ton to dispose, and we want to charge 120. So that is a 20% markup on our cost, is it not?
So that's just on hauling the waste out of the transfer station. The additional cost is labor and maintenance and capital expenditures of the transfer station.
So do we have a full accounting of the actual cost per ton?
So we have a couple different versions of it. We have one from NRA, and then we've also done a couple. It can vary widely. It can vary depending on how you kind of account for the municipal waste versus the construction debris, because they're not super well broken out. It can.
Let's assume it's bags of trash.
So again, you have to include all of the cost. I believe the NRA's has the cost anywhere between $120 and $160 per ton.
So a couple points on that. If we're saying we're trying to cover our costs, we don't really cover our costs. Is that correct? If we're proposing $120 cost per ton?
So yeah, if you were to ask me specifically whether or not that 120 would cover all the cost, I would say no, probably not. It probably would be higher. But again, I think as a couple of people have brought up, the concern is that there is really only one local business using it, and so the concern is raising it higher. Concord's is at 157. The initial NNRA proposal suggested we raise it above 150 per ton. And I think the initial reaction from everybody up here was that would probably be an unfair impact on a single person.
Okay, last point, this will spill over into green bag, but I wanted to make the point now. So if we're saying that if a private trash service can pick up as many green bags as they want in town today, they can dump them for no fee. We as residents, and we'll get to this in green bag, many do not use green bags, and we do not pay for trash disposal. So if a private trash service today picks up all Hopkinton residents' trash, which are not in green bags, why do they have to pay? That's it.
Thank you. So will you let others speak who haven't spoken yet? Thank you.
Yeah, John Westcott from Tebrock Road. I am here to ask some clarifying questions about the stump and yard waste removal fees. I noticed, and I apologize if this has been discussed in the past. I just noticed recently when it was posted in the community Facebook page that there was a proposed increase to charge $10 per load. Is that for all residential waste or just commercial?
We're talking
Stumps and
Stumps.
yard waste?
Yeah, I believe the old one was $100 a ton, right? They changed it.
Back up top, near the
Wasn't-
pickup truck yard, rings, I think is what we're asking about.
Brush and stump.
Brush and stumps.
See, brush and stumps went from $100 a ton to $10 a load.
Right, so is that any person who goes in their pickup truck with leaves from their yard has to pay $10 to dump that?
Believe, yes, right?
I think that's right.
So my questions then are, what research was done about what other towns charge, or what is the actual cost to the town to dispose of that organic material versus other construction debris or things where I know that there's a cost to have that hauled, but my understanding is the yard waste does not go anywhere. So what is justifying that $10 fee? And then, my concerns as a resident, especially as someone who lives in a close proximity to the transfer station, is that yard waste is going to become dumped on the side of the roads or at the end of our cul-de-sac where we're already picking tires up that people dump a few times a year and things like that. And has there been any discussion with the fire department in town about folks deciding, rather than bringing their leaves to the dump to dispose of that, burning them in their yard irresponsibly and causing an increased burden on our fire department to police those concerns? So I'm just, my thought is, and maybe you've done this research, we're just kind of passing the buck then. Another town function is going to have an increased cost to support irresponsible disposal of that brush.
So just to level set a little bit on this, we went through this, I guess it was last fall, this whole fee schedule. We had a lot of input from Dan Blanchett, who's the head of Department of Public Works,
Mhm.
and tried to do our best to get our best estimates on like the real costs of disposing of all of these things. And so that was a place where we started. We then had a joint meeting with Webster close to a month ago now, where we went through each of these things line by line and discussed them each in detail. I believe this is one where it's maybe not perfect, but it's a good place to start in terms of trying to capture the cost of brush and stumps. And I don't know if anyone else, my notes are kind of light on this from the Webster meeting. I don't know if others remember details about this particular item and how we landed on this.
I don't remember this specific one, but I do remember, so when we were going through this entire fee schedule, we pulled up pretty much all surrounding area transfer stations and their
Mhm.
fee schedules to see how they compared with ours. And then also one of the big points was, again, talking with Dan Blanchett and Jolene about not just the cost, but also how it should be implemented, whether or not it's worth having someone drive over the scale for something that might only weigh like 20 pounds when it's
Mhm.
much easier to do a token thing. I think that the concern about dumping is a really big one. And I think that, a lot of that is shown in here as like the cost to dispose of a refrigerator is not the true cost to dispose of a refrigerator. It's
Yeah.
it's a token amount to help offset the costs, where the goal is really to not have people dumping refrigerators in their backyard kind of stuff.
Right.
So I think across all of this that applies, and looking at everyone's fee schedules and what makes sense and how we should be charging people, we tried our best to come up with a good middle ground across all those concerns.
Sure.
Yeah, and another resource was the NRRA. We also used them as a way to benchmark, and they had recommendations
Yeah.
on most of these items.
My request then would be that there is more transparency in where these numbers are coming from, because if you just look at a $0 to $10 per passenger vehicle increase, that seems like a really large increase. But if it's justified, I support it. My other request would be that, like Concord or similar towns, that there are days or weekends in the fall and the spring, kind of yard cleanup times, where there isn't a fee to bring that waste, so that we aren't seeing folks dumping in wetlands or on the side of roads at the end of dead ends, things like that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do just want to note that we have had all of these discussions in public and we've had many of them. So to your point about transparency, I appreciate it, but
Yeah, and I didn't mean that.
no,
as
no,
any
I just want to
shade
make sure that
you.
everyone knows they can go back and listen to all of
Yeah.
our,
It
all
would
of
be
our
helpful if it
discussions.
was in writing somewhere, because watching a video of the open
Right.
public hearings is not always accessible to
Yes,
everybody.
appreciate that.
Thank-
Thank you.
So that one is going from $100. Maybe that was confusing on there. It isn't going from zero.
The brush and
Well,
stumps.
there-
It was 100 a ton, now it's.
Right.
Well,
Just to be clear, because it seemed. like-
No, but I know it's more confusing because it's brush under 5 inches is not charged.
Right.
The brush over 5 inches is charged at the tonnage. So it's going down per tonnage, but then also increasing for anything that's less.
Right. And this is a discussion about volume versus tonnage.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Hi.
Christopher Gross, Chuckberry Lane. Are commercial enterprises allowed to dump at the Hopkinton dump, from outside of Hopkinton? Do other municipalities bring their waste to us to dump?
No,
Not at all. Okay,
They're
Not-
not.
I know they're not supposed, I had no idea, so I was just, I needed
Yeah.
clarification. so,
Yeah.
okay,
they're
Thank
not
you.
supposed to.
perfect.
Hello.
Byron Carr, Burnham Interval Road. There was one thing Thomas said that I can't, I don't think is correct. He said that these people that, if they increase the fees to the people that are having the commercial hauler to the amount per pound or whatever, increase their fee to cover the cost of the thing, they will get all that cost back in the reduced taxes. That isn't possible.
So to.
No, that's what you
those-
said. I'm just.
Sorry, no, I know, those specific individuals, no. Because of the way we have, right now, we have more than 5 different trash waste streams that come into the transfer station. So in a world where everyone, say we had universal curbside pickup, then any change in those fees would be an offset in taxes and everyone would see that same change. But because we have so many different ways that waste can come into our transfer station, we effectively have splits between different people's tax proportion. So however much we need to spend on the transfer station, some people pay more and some people pay less through their taxes. So for example, anyone who's using All Clear.
I know that, but you
So-
said the people, any money these people give extra to the hauler for the fees,
As
they
a
will
whole-
get back and
as a whole, the
reduce
town-
taxes.
As a whole, the increase in revenue into the transfer station, that increase in revenue to the transfer station becomes a decrease in taxes to the whole of a town.
Yes, but they do not get back what they paid in.
That is true. However, you would also say other people who have like. Right, but just to be clear, there are people who use haulers like All Clear, who they're paying a very large portion. Right.
Did I misunderstand you when you said that the tipping fees that are going to be paid by the haulers would cover the cost of the transfer station? Is that what I heard you say?
No,
Then would you repeat to me what you said, that you were increasing the fees for the haulers to use, I thought you said to cover the cost at the transfer station.
so ideally, anything that's coming into the transfer station, in a world where we want to have the waste that's coming to the transfer station cover the cost of the operation of the transfer station, then that's how it would work. So in an ideal world, we would have one hauler doing universal curbside pickup. All of the fees for that would then cover all of the cost of the transfer station.
I understand that.
We can't do that. And so if you looked at the various cost accountings that either that we've done or the NRA has done, that price could be anywhere between $120 and $150 per ton. So whether or not the current proposed will cover all of it, probably not. And whether or not it's going to reduce individuals' taxes in proportion
It's
to how
not
much.
going to.
It's not going to, right? If everyone was doing the exact same thing, then it would, but everyone's not doing the exact same thing. We have too many different ways that trash is disposed of in the town. So it becomes more complicated than that.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you.
Hi, Catherine Mitchell, Boundary Road. I kind of see the problem we're having here now, is resulting from two things. None of the prices for the bags or, the tipping fees for haulers have been raised in a long time to keep up with costs. But there's also been a change, and we're sort of suddenly trying to do that in one fell swoop. But there's also been a change in what those fees are covering. Originally, the green bag fees were supposed to cover the tipping fees that the town paid and the cost of transportation to take the trash out of town. It was never designed at that time to cover any of the overhead. That part was going to come out of everyone's taxes with the idea that it was in everyone's best interest to have a place to take trash, recyclables, stumps, brush, all of that stuff. So we're now trying to catch up with many years of not having raised prices, plus we're adding in the overhead. And I think that's kind of like a bit of a sledgehammer to people when we look at what the prices will be now, particularly for a commercial hauler. And I'm just wondering if we couldn't perhaps phase something in a little more gradually and maybe not include all of the overhead, which didn't used to be included. I understand both perspectives, that if you looked at having everything covered, but I think it's hard to tease out and do that equitably. And as I said, we're trying to do catch up with the cost of both the bags and the tipping fees for the haulers, plus including more than used to be included. And I think that's creating a big jump. So I just want to end with a question. If the hauler, assuming they're not bringing green bags, for which there'd be no charge for a hauler, if they're bringing in commercial trash or residential trash that is not in green bags, what would the tipping fee and the transportation costs alone amount to, as opposed to including everything?
$93.
That includes both tipping and transportation.
That's what we pay Waste Management.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Catherine.
Gary Rondo, East Pennacook Road. I've got a question about the brush and stumps for pickup truck. It used to be $100 a ton. What constitutes a load of what brush, what size stump, etc.? How is that defined? Number one. Number two, what happens to the stumps? Aren't those chipped out? Doesn't Rose come in and chip all that out and turn that into mulch? I know he has a mulch yard. He takes stumps, separates the topsoil out of the stumps, chips out the bark, mulch, and sells it along with the topsoil and the rocks. He's got a good operation over there. So I think he's been over there doing the stumpage from time to time. Do we pay for that? Do we not pay for that? Those are my questions. What constitutes a truckload, a passenger truckload pickup of brush and stumps, as it's explained on the chart? What's a stump? What's brush? How big?
So on the new one, there is no difference between stump and brush, right?
Okay.
It's just a truckload.
But
So
it's $10 a load.
a load.
Rather than weighing in for $100
Right.
a ton.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I believe in it's defining a 1-ton truck as a $20 load.
Right.
So it's significantly reducing
So
the
half
cost.
cost, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
So I don't know, I mean, there wouldn't have to be any differentiation between stumps and brush because it'd all just be the same. I don't have an answer as to what happens to the stumps.
I'm not aware of Chuck Rose taking anything out.
I think he brings his equipment over there and does run outside. I think I've seen that happen before.
Do you know
Seen him
if
with me.
that's true? Okay. We would need.
I haven't,
DPW to
I
answer
haven't
that.
seen any revenue numbers from,
I don't know if you, I
Brush.
don't know if you just give it to him and he takes it and turns it.
I can find out. It's
Yeah,
it's a good question. Yeah.
All right, because it would be an offset.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's on site. Anything that happens is on site, and then it's.
I can't hear you. I can't hear what you were saying.
Said Neil said anything that would happen on site. Is that what you said? Yeah. Mhm.
And I just wanted to add before we go on that the ordinance just say that logs or brush larger than 5 inches in diameter are considered stumps. So there is some language in there. on that.
So this clarification.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dave DiPiano, 68 Brookwood Lane. One question, just because I need the clarification am I to assume that if I bring a Christmas tree, it's gonna cost me $10 to dispose of it?
Yeah, so I vaguely remember throwing Christmas tree in the hopper.
5 inches.
Yeah,
So it would have to do with the measurement.
yeah, or where it goes. I know that like.
So we'll go to the Christmas tree farm and make sure it's, 4.999.
Let's save $10, yes.
Okay,
I think,
does it not seem a little
no, I think-
ridiculous, though?
I think,
We're defining it
one of
by-
the previous speakers brought up a really good idea about doing yard cleanup days, because I think there's a lot of very valid concerns as to whether or not someone bringing in just like a small amount of waste. I think something like that would make a lot of sense. I think something like Christmas tree drop-off days would also probably make a lot of sense.
I could go along with that too, but
yeah.
we had 2 major ice storms in April, lots of trees fell down. That would be hundreds and hundreds of dollars of cost to this town for events that we can't control. And at the end of the day, our tax dollars are still continuing to fund the transfer station regardless of what you decide to raise our fees to, correct? Every year,
So
we pay increased tax to cover the
anything that's not
shortfall.
covered with fees is covered by taxes.
Okay, so why are we arguing over $10, $20 when we're all gonna be paying this anyway in our taxes? Why can't we just put a sticker on the car? I live in Hopkinton, drive in, drop my trash, and you true up at the end of the year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amanda Gimmel, 168 Westford Circle. I just want to clarify, I do believe, it's kind of echoing Catherine Mitchell's point, that the warrant article put forth by the business was to cap increases at no more than 10%. It wasn't, I believe it was to cap it at 10% of the cost.
It was to limit our ability to charge a fee to the actual cost of transportation tipping plus 10%.
I think that's what I intended to say, exactly what you just said.
That's not a 10% increase a year. That's
To not charge them more than 10% of what it costs you to dispose of it. That is my understanding of what the warrant article said.
I
Okay,
agree.
so that being said, to Catherine's point, if it costs you $93, 10% more is like $106, $107, not $120. So it is a huge increase, and the 10% does seem like a more reasonable incremental piece to me, instead of jumping up to the 120. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, is there a line back there? Just noting that for anyone else who wants to. Anyone else?
Gets there first. Good job.
Tricia Lambert, 305 Galloping Hill Road. I agree with a lot of the comments, especially her point to this has been so woefully mismanaged for so long. What you're doing now is you're trying to catch up. I see it. However, you're picking a time of which, whether you're talking about inflation or deflation of our dollar, both, that it's the little people, whether it's $10 a stump for a truckload of stumps, you're picking a time where it is going to hurt families. And we're nickel and diming the very people that you work for. So I'll leave my bag comments till later, but I'll just quickly make the point that I was here for the bags as well. And that was never intended to cover those costs. It was nominal for a reason, but we'll talk more about that at the next go around. Thanks.
Thank you.
Rita Blanchard, Barton Corner Road. I was tardy. Did anybody mention if there was a loss or gain on the cost of the dump last year? I was just looking for a book. Like your budget for the dump. I don't have the book in front of me, so I'm gonna say so if the budget was $100 for the dump, did it cost $95 or did it cost $105? That's my question. I want to know if we lost money on the dump, like were we under budget or were we over budget?
So for the tipping fees, we're contracted in at a negotiated rate, so that doesn't change.
Okay, I'm not asking about tipping fees. Cause I'm coming to it.
Can I
You sure?
summarize what I think you're asking?
Yeah,
Did we get revenues over and above the cost of operating the transfer station? Is that what you're
Yes.
asking? We did not.
The answer is
Okay.
no.
so no revenues for over the cost of the dump. Did we break even?
Taxes fund a significant portion of the operation, both from us and from Webster.
Yeah. It's my understanding Webster's like 25%, we're 75%, and they're not green bagging. I know the bags have been around for about 12, 14 years, and I was here for that. And I agree with the previous comments. Has anybody looked at if the green bags were ever effective? And if not, why not? Like, that's what we're,
It's a good basic question. But Rita, you missed the beginning where we are actually on the public hearing just for the,
tipping.
just for the.
Well, that's what I'm getting
the
to.
fees. Okay.
So, sorry, I got a hair. The tipping fees, like I know this building doesn't pay for pickup. Is that my understanding?
Are you talking town hall?
Yeah. Do the municipalities pay to have their trash taken to the dump?
I don't know what our trash pickup policy is here.
Our trucks take it.
The town trucks take it?
Yeah.
Does the trash go in green bags?
No.
Okay. There we go. So say we
That would
use,
make sense.
do we recycle? Is there a separate truck for recycling?
Yes.
Say you used Kyle to pick it up, MC trash. And it went in with all the other trash. You're not using black bags, he's still paying that $1.20 tipping fee. Correct?
Wait, sorry, I'm not following you. So you're
So-
saying if a municipal
Yes,
entity in town paid empty trash? Is that what you're saying?
yes. Like the other
Okay.
businesses in town, they have to pay
Okay.
for pickup.
Don't,
Sorry?
I'm sorry, but
No, what'd you say?
I was just, repeating what you said. I was trying.
Okay.
think.
Because the town doesn't use green bags. That's an example to the community.
Well, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now, but it wouldn't make sense for, like, that wouldn't even be operationally like feasible. It's intended, we'll save that, but
Okay.
that's not
all
the
right,
intent
okay.
of the,
So the tipping
program.
fee for the businesses.
okay, tipping fee.
This is my point tonight. So we drive Kyle and Jess out of town. Because they can't afford the tipping fees, or they have to haul somewhere else. Everybody's prices go up, but they're hauling out of town. Everclear hauls out of town. What's the other one? Naughton hauls out of town. So if all these people start hauling out of town, the dump will have less trash. And because people are paying more in addition to their taxes for these pickups, for garbage pickup at the end of their driveway by a commercial hauler, and the trash goes out of town, that's gonna mean less trash at the dump, correct?
If more people used a commercial hauler who took trash out of our town,
Yeah.
yes, in theory, I would say
So,
so.
right, that's the theory I'm getting to. So if that happens, like I'm going to the dump Wednesday, I'm not gonna use a green bag. I'm just not gonna. So, because the experience, and you can talk to anybody in town who's bought a green bag, you gotta put it in a black bag anyways,
Right.
and then put the black bag in the green bag.
Right.
More waste, more waste.
We're going
And
down
more
the green
plastic.
bag route. If you can tighten it up to what
I'm
the,
trying to,
okay.
you know, if you're gonna tell people to do tipping or to do, not tell people, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. So if people choose to use a commercial hauler and they still gotta do bags, that makes 0 sense in my head. So somebody has to explain that to me.
So if somebody uses green bags and empty trash picks up.
Yeah.
Whatever, I don't know what the arrangement is between people who use, whatever they've agreed to pay, they would pay empty trash, but empty trash does not pay a tipping fee for the green bag loads. They do for the non-green bag loads. But I also just want to level set, there's plenty of people in town who currently use commercial haulers who haul out of town.
Right.
That's a reality right now.
Yes.
I also just want to note, MT Trash is a business. They are not a town entity. And so to level set again, and what we're trying to do, it's not to try to punish anyone. It's not to try to push anyone out of town. We got recommendations to say that fee should be over $150. That was a recommendation. Other towns around us do much closer to 150 or over that. So we're just
Actually,
trying.
just to be clear, almost all other transfer stations do not accept commercial waste.
Right. That's another anomaly of our little transfer station
Yeah.
is that most little towns who have dumps and transfer stations don't accept commercial hauling.
Okay.
We do. So, that's one thing. But I think what we're trying to do is strike a balance here. And so the idea that we're trying to like jack up the price for, some random reason is just not based in reality. 120 we felt was a more balanced approach because the recommendation was over 150. And we decided we didn't want to do that in conjunction with Webster. And so
Okay.
that's how we landed at 120.
Is there an RSA? Because I'm asking about, this is also about the tipping fee.
Yeah,
So,
that's what it should be.
Is there an RSA? Sorry, I'm going down all these different directions with you. That says the dump cannot, like a municipality cannot make a profit off of what we're charged. There's a couple
don't
layers at the table, that's why
know.
I'm asking.
I don't know if you know.
I'm not
that.
aware of anything like that.
I don't think that exists.
I'd like to just jump in here, to give you an idea of the order of magnitude of the things we're talking about. The budget for 2024 for the transfer station is about $800,000. And that's made up of, we're getting roughly 150,000 from Webster. We're estimating 200,000 transfer station commercial fees, 40,000 recycling receipts, 45,000 pay by bag. Thus, about 370,000 is still coming from taxes.
Okay. Yeah, I have the sheets from the 23. I don't have the 20.
So
in front of me.
I didn't have to say that, I guess.
Not to me. I got it. I have it right here in front of me. But, okay, no, that was just my question, because it seems like if they're gonna be using Everclear or not, and that trash is gonna go out, and then we're gonna go say, see, the bags work. Because there will be less trash. People are either gonna recycle or not.
Yeah, so because you brought up the question as to like whether or not we've analyzed whether or not green bags work.
Yeah.
We've tried really, really hard. It is virtually impossible to figure it out because we have some people using green bags, some people not using green bags. Then we have Webster. Then we also have Webster using pickup, Webster not using pickup. We have haulers coming to our transfer station, haulers not coming to our transfer station. So any way you look at the numbers, it's almost impossible to tease out if green bags work or not. So I definitely don't think we would see a reduction of hauler waste and say green bags are working. I definitely see what you're saying. It's incredibly
Okay.
difficult to find out.
All right, I'm just gonna keep listening, see if somebody else. has a
And
question.
we will open up the public input session on the green bags too. I just want to make sure anyone who wants to speak specifically about the ordinance gets a chance to speak while we have, that's what we're in right now, is that public
Okay.
hearing.
Like I said, I got here tardy, but,
Okay.
okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Rita.
Hi, Frances Blamey, Bassett Mill Road. I do understand that we need a raise and I'm not opposed to that. I did find it odd, as someone else said, that the fee is gone up to $93, but we're going up to $120. That seems like a big jump. I also hear what Thomas is saying in regards to there are other factors that come into play. I am more concerned about what has happened at these meetings in regards to punishing people for raising warrants, as the gentleman in the back said. And when I heard that, I did not believe that it was true. So I was pointed to the video and I watched the video and I was appalled at what was said. I was stunned. And right after, I believe it was something to the fact that it was like a poke in the eye with a sharp stick, the fact that the warrant had been made. And right immediately afterwards was the suggestion that we should just get rid of the contractors. That is not the exact language. I don't remember the exact language. I don't think that's appropriate. I did appreciate that you did try to bring it back and say, hey, let's stick to business. But I did not hear a public acknowledgement that it was an inappropriate comment. I did not hear a public apology. And if that has not been made, then I'd like to ask that it be made.
Thank you. So I just want to, if you could just, it's not applaud for things, please. I just want to move things along. We did discuss that several times. And so I would like to move on from that if we could. At the time, I said it was not appropriate. I think Jeff spoke out of turn. I'm just going to say that. I said, we can't be making comments like that. That is not reflective of what the rest of the board thought or said. And I will say had nothing to do with how we proceeded in discussing these fees and discussing the transfer station and discussing empty trash. So yes, it was inappropriate. Yes, I said that. I don't know what else to say. I think I did already apologize to empty trash in a prior meeting, and I will apologize again as the chair of this board. That I'm sorry those comments were made by one of the members of our board. And so I mean that sincerely. And if I hadn't done that already, I apologize for that. So anyway, so I hope we can move on to discussing anything else on the fee schedule, and then we will move on to green bags. So thank you for that comment.
Can I just add, just before we move on, it's been referenced before, but we have a good bit of consultant recommendations and data that support what we're trying to do. And so I just want to make sure that people understand that our motivation for this is not any sort of retribution. People like NRRA and ourselves on the board have looked at the numbers and tried to figure out what is the appropriate cost to be charging, which has nothing to do with the petition warrant article. And so the fact that there was a petition warrant article, which may have upset some people, does not change the fact that these numbers have not been touched in a very long time and are probably too low.
Yeah, I mean, this is a discussion we've been having for a while. So thank you for that, Stephen. Hi.
Hi, Cheryl Morse, 396 Park Avenue. I'm confused about something, and I don't know if you can answer the question. So some haulers take it to our recycling center, some haulers take it out of town, commercial haulers. And obviously they're paying a tipping fee, the ones that leave the town, somewhere else. So is this number that you're trying to arrive at, is that a compromise between what they would pay if they went out of town and what people are not haulers here in town? I mean, how is that number arrived to at 120?
So I don't know if you missed.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So just briefly, 120 was based on input from the NRA, doing a lot of research into what other towns do, extensive discussion with Webster. We have to make these decisions in conjunction with them. And I noted several other towns around us charge a lot more than we do. And so it was recommended that we land somewhere above $150.
Okay.
And so given that we're at
Yes.
93, we thought 120 was a more balanced approach. And that was our attempt at some sort of compromise, because you are correct. For people who pay for haulers who are not based in this town, who go out of town, they're paying much, much higher tipping fees.
I'd like to, I heard all that. I was here for that part. I'd like to suggest that as in many instances, that you do your best to use an equal sample. I don't think comparing us with Concord is an equal sample.
Well, Bosquen, we use Bosquen, Warner.
It's also really hard because actually almost all other transfer stations don't accept commercial waste.
Right.
So it's very hard to come up with a sample. We did try to reach out to other haulers to see what they're charging. It's interesting. Some haulers run their own transfer stations. And so that cost isn't like a fee they pay. It's not an easy thing to do.
Who that connects with us does not take the, from the haulers. Does Henniker accept haulers?
I don't think so.
Where?
I don't think so. I don't think I guess where does.
So we're not really sure. I guess I'd love to say, we got a list here of 6 towns, very specifically. I love the NRA, they're fine, but that's in Concord. And I think you'll convince this crowd much better if you can say for sure, we took this one, this one, this one, and this one, and this is what they're doing. And so therefore, this is why it makes sense for us. That's all.
Thank you. Yeah, and we did try, when we met with Webster, we discussed Bosquen, Warner, Concord. I think there might have been one other. But like Thomas said, it is kind of tough to find exact comparisons. Hello.
Hi, good evening. I'm Steve Eckberg from Amesbury Road, and I hope you won't mind if I address a completely different part of the proposed fee schedule. The very first line item, I think, proposes an increase in the permit fee from $1 to $5. And I'd like the board to consider keeping that at $1, maybe even making our permits free as a way to encourage people to actively participate and bring their trash to the dump. I think it's a pretty small number, the current $1 fee. I wouldn't imagine we make a whole lot of money off of that. So I'm not sure we'd make much off a $5 fee either. So maybe keeping it as it is to maybe even making it free as a, this is something you get as a resident of Hopkinton. Here's your dump fee or your dump sticker. Go forth and dump. Okay. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We did debate that fee for quite a while with Webster, I will add. Because I think currently here, at least, you can get your sticker at town hall, and I don't think we don't charge.
Since
for it.
pay by bag went in, there's been no charge for stickers.
Yeah. There's been no charge. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak on the ordinance update? Anyone online? You can raise your hand. Lauren, is that Lauren?
Lauren Clement, 86 Maple Street. It's pretty exciting to see so many people here concerned about our taxes, because there's a lot of other subjects where they aren't here. So this is interesting. I guess the first thing I want to address is commercial haulers. I am totally in support of doing things the Hopkinton way, not worrying about what other towns are doing. As long as the fees are being paid for at the municipality, I think they're doing a great service for our community by reducing traffic on Saturday. So please don't penalize anyone on whatever the fees end up being. Don't eliminate them. Do it the Hopkinton way. This is the way we've been doing it. The second thing that I'm curious about is, it sounded like when Ken did the numbers, there's about $380,000 of overage that needs to be appropriated as of last year, that we were in the hole.
That's roughly the amount that would have been included in determining the tax rate going forward.
Okay, so about under 400,000 this year.
Correct.
Okay, that number is important. I'm going to throw a twist in here. 5 years ago, we apparently got a contract to put a solar array on the sitting transfer station or the landfill. At some point, that will be built, I would assume, and will generate an income for the town. Will that then go to offset the transfer station's budget or just the town budget? Thanks.
Thanks, Lauren.
I would say it's going into the same bucket, so you could look at it either way. It's just been delayed, let's say, due to interconnection issues at the utility and the state level. But we're still certainly optimistic that it will come to pass. And it could be as much as 150,000 a year, which would have to be split with Webster.
75-25.
Yes, thank you. 75-25 split.
Becky Ekstrom, 1780 Boundary Road. Along the lines of the transfer station budget, have we started to talk about how much the lagoon shutdown is going to cost us? Because if we're off by like 400,000 and the lagoons come in at like 20 million, right? It's going to be a big number.
There'll have to be a bond. That's certainly my expectation. And it would have to get approved at the next town meeting realistically. And would impact the budget thereafter.
Okay, I just feel like looking at the budget, we don't have a full picture of all the costs because I know that's still outstanding for us. Thank you.
You're absolutely correct.
Thank you.
Jennifer Arias, 346 Wilhenniker. This isn't necessarily towards green bags or ordinance, just kind of an overall general question. And I'm sure it's a mix of both of them, but is the goal to like increase recycling to therefore like offset the cost of the dump? Or is it to just, I guess like, are we trying to decrease the amount of trash, or do we just need more money? Or is it like a combination of both? And is decreasing the trash and increasing the recycling going to help at all?
It's a very good question. I think that our goal is to reduce waste and increase recycling and increase efficiencies any way we can.
Okay, and then does the town or even any commercial businesses do recycling pickups, or is it all on the person who lives at the house to go take it to the dump? And is that something that the board has considered to help offset the amount of?
Thomas is considered at $1,000.
Yeah, we
There are-
discussed.
There are haulers, and I just want to make a note, I mean, like, as a town, that we have a waste reduction committee and we voted, I mean, a lot of the impetus around the green bag program was to help reduce waste, and improve recycling. The real start from revisiting this fee schedule is the fact that it hasn't been done in a really long time. Same thing with revisiting at the warrant, at the town meeting, the agreement between the two towns. So a lot of this is also just, it hasn't been done in a long time and updating them to what they should be. There are some haulers that do recycling pickup, and there are some haulers that don't.
Okay.
Yeah. And we have looked at options both within the last year and 5 years ago, we had another specific committee to look at the entire transfer station, and the idea of curbside pickup did come up both times.
Because I think that like we're focusing on like, hey, let's punish for the amount of trash, maybe leaning towards, hey, like, let's encourage the amount of recycling, more of like not a shame on you versus like, a look at what you can do and how it reflects our town, maybe working with some other local businesses or something to try to help increase the recycling rather than, hey, you're gonna pay for trash. Because there are people who have a lot of kids who have to pay for trash. We're also paying for a lot of other things that comes along with the cost of having kids. And I feel like those people are the ones that are getting hit really hard with, hey, everything's just going to cost a lot of money because you decided to have children so that we didn't go extinct. So just maybe looking at, oh, okay, well, maybe if you didn't throw away all of your baby bottles and you recycled them because, you know, it helps. Just trying to see how we can fit recycling into rather than just.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone have their hand up? Okay. Okay.
I'll put it.
Anyone else? Final call for the public hearing on the refuse disposal ordinance and transfer station fee schedule. Okay. All right. So we'll close that hearing. We're gonna try to turn on the fans because it's hot in here.
What's hot air?
Never.
No comment.
I heard the comment.
Well, that is actually helping if you can feel it in the back. Okay. Are these, okay, good. We're still going. Okay, so we've closed that hearing. Okay, yeah, that would be great. Oh, yeah. I also just want to add that we will be discussing the ordinance with Webster at their meeting next Monday. If anyone is interested, and hopefully voting to finalize that because the two towns have to agree and vote on the same changes.
We can make changes at that? It doesn't
Yeah.
have to, it doesn't have to go through another public hearing.
No, we've gotten our public input and now we'll discuss as boards and finalize because we need a functional ordinance. Thank you, Neil. Okay, so we will open the public input session on pay by bags, AKA green bags. I just want to note, because we have a lot of people here, we're going to try to limit comments to 3 minutes and under if you could. Neil has a timer and he'll give you the yellow when you've got like
Yes, it's
30 seconds.
2.5, and that's a sit down.
We don't get to do this very often at the select board. It's exciting to have so many people here. So I will also just say thank you to everyone who came out and spoke on the fee schedule. We do appreciate your input and everyone showing up for that. Okay, so we will just now start the public input session. I also just want to quickly level set on green bags and say, again, we've been discussing this for a long time. I would say we've been discussing this in more detail over the last 2 years or so. And the reason we're having this discussion tonight in a more formal way is because the board had quite a bit of disagreement at our last meeting on the 28th, I think it was, where some of us are landing in a place where we're ready to sort of muddle along and then put up a warrant article to rescind green bags in 2025. Others think we haven't put in enough effort to try to show what the program could look like if done correctly. And so after much debate, we decided to have a public input session, which is how we have arrived here. So I just wanted to give that background. Okay, go ahead.
William Palazzolo, Hopkinton Road, and I wrote a bunch, but I'll make it much quicker because I know there's a lot of people. So I want to mostly focus on the Hopkinton Waste Reduction Committee's report that was attached to this meeting for the notes, because that's like seems like a driving force keeping this pay by bag alive. So for those who haven't had time to read the committee's report, I'll summarize. Besides blaming the transfer station staff, the DPW director, and the select board for not implementing the ordinance, essentially the report by the Waste Reduction Committee says that although almost no residents freely choose to use the green bags, they, the committee, believe that we all secretly yearn for pay by bag. They go, I'm not joking, this is what it says. They go on to conclude on our behalf that what we actually want is for the select board to put their boot on our throats to force us to participate. I wish I was joking, but unfortunately I'm not. That is their conclusion. However, I'd like to offer a different interpretation. Citizens of Hopkinton have been participating in a pay-by-bag experiment for 14 years. Thankfully, this has given us the opportunity to collect and examine the data. Every resident has been free to choose whether they would like to purchase the green bags. For 14 years, the bags have been readily available. However, the program has been rejected by roughly 90% of residents. We know this with certainty because the data shows us that only approximately 10% of people use them. The select board keeps talking about giving the bags a fair trial. As I've just said, we've had a fair trial for 14 years. However, I'd like to highlight for members that the select board, that the fair trial does not involve elected officials abusing their power and putting their finger on the scale. For those of you who haven't heard, the board has suggested fining residents $200 for their first infraction delivered to the police at your doorstep. And for a second offense, you would get banned from the transfer station for a year. Obviously, no resident wants to face those consequences. So the board will be effectively engineering the results they want through coercion. I urge the members of the select board to look to the last 14 years as the trial for play-by-bag. I realize it's difficult for some people to hear this, but the program has failed and the majority of residents want to freely use the transfer station as they have for years. This should not be a wedge in our town. I am strongly advocating for no change in the enforcement and for the pay-by-bag program to be officially eliminated at the next town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. No applause. Moving along. Thank you for your comments.
Can I just make it?
Yeah.
One quick note though, the current transfer station ordinances say that if anyone's not following the rules, there's a $200 fee. And then if there's follow on, then you lose your permission to use the transfer station. So that's not a change that we would be recommending. That's just the current enforcement of the transfer station.
Yeah.
Cheryl Morris, 396. And Thomas, that raises the point of if you enforce that, you got enforcement issues, which is a full-time employee or something.
Can you
because our
guys,
staff.
can you guys take your conversation outside, please?
Hey, what's happening over there? Bonnie, if you want to make a comment, you have to stand in line and please don't approach people. Oh, okay. Okay, well, you can respond when you get in line and wait. Thank you.
Sorry about that interruption. I'm sorry.
All right.
That's all right.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you. Cheryl Morris, 396. I probably said that. Sorry. I just ran some numbers between 22 and 23. And, our Jolene within her department is trying to make an argument in the town report. And I know a lot of people that read it cover to cover. This is the best bathroom reading in town. And, it doesn't sell well in my book for her to be trying to put what avoids emissions. That should be under recycling committee, but instead, very specifically, and I have a printout here of the very specific numbers of what Henniker does for tonnage and for figures that goes in their town report every year. So people can look at actual numbers. They don't think they're guessing and double guessing. But the comparison between us in the last 2 years is kind of interesting. This is my math, so I apologize, but if it's wrong, in aluminum cans and plastics, we were down last year. We were down 25% in aluminum cans and 34% in plastics. That was a lot. Scrap metal was about the same. Paper, cardboard wasn't a lot different. Steel cans, drank a lot of beer, went up 41%. I don't know why. And tires more than doubled. And tires are really bad hazardous waste. So the net result of the recycling that I came up with is that because of that, we were only down about 5%. But the game changer here is the tipping fees. No matter what we do, we're going up $4. Is it $4? $4 a ton. Jolene put it into the report from 93 to 79 and 89 to 93, 93 to 79, no matter what we do. So I would love to see a lot more effort at the recycling. I saved my 3 tons worth of pellet bags. And I almost save enough for a full bench through the Lions Club all by myself. So if everybody did that, I can't imagine what could happen. And it becomes kind of fun. And I would love to somehow get the school involved, get the teachers involved. It takes hundreds of years for plastic to break down under the soil. And I'm not singing to the choir here. I'm just repeating it. I know that. Hundreds of years. And these, I don't know how many more mils of plastic these green bags are than the black ones, but it's a lot more. And I'm not willing, and I'm not willing to put that in the earth. So hopefully you won't have to enforce it on me.
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay.
Bonnie Christie, 302 Smithfield Road. I'm amazed that somebody would say that, and I would like to see in writing those words. that
Bonnie, if you
attributed to me.
could direct yourself to us, and you guys have
I'm
an offline
amazed that
conversation.
somebody said that. And I wrote that report, and I would like to see in writing where those words are, because I did not use those words in that report. This hearing today about green bags, we asked that this be put in a framework and a context, not just have a free-for-all about green bags. The context is we have an enormous waste problem in this town. Over I think it was a 9 or 10-year period, our population grew by less than 6%, and our waste grew by more than 20%, unrestricted. Along with an enormous waste problem, we have an enormous budget, $800,000, to manage that waste. And we are doing nothing. This, free-for-all where anybody can do whatever they want with no consequences has resulted in that. This experiment of green bags has not been properly implemented. It was never implemented. It's always been optional. We don't do that with town taxes. We don't say we're sending you a tax bill and you can pay it or not pay it. We pay our bills, and if you don't pay the bills, it's enforced. We set speed limits in our town. We don't say, well, you can comply with them or not, but there's no consequences, if you want to speed anywhere in town. We don't do things that way. We should be looking at how we can reduce that waste. We should reduce waste at the source, and this is a big issue that we're not going to deal with here in this meeting or alone in this town. That's to stop being as wasteful in what we buy, the waste that we produce, our thoughtlessness on waste. But okay, it's gonna take longer than
30
that.
seconds.
Yeah. Lost my train of thought there.
You were saying reduce waste at the source, stop being so wasteful.
The other thing to do is what waste we don't reduce at the source, the waste that makes it to the transfer station. The only way to deal with that and to reduce it and to reduce our tipping fees and our tonnage, you either recycle more and you divert the food waste through composting, or you just throw it all into the hopper and pay. There's a lot more that has to be said here, so I know I'm being shut off. But that's what we should be talking about here tonight. And if people don't like the idea of green bags, I implore you to come up here and tell us how else are we going to reduce our waste?
Okay.
Tell us what
Fine.
your plan is.
We need to let everyone have
Tell
a
us
chance.
what your plan is.
Okay, thank you.
Bonnie.
Bob Mattia, 108 Park Ave. I did have a question, and Sabrina, you mentioned, I know you've had a lot of meetings on this. Has there been discussion, and I'm assuming there is, as to if this increase goes through, will there be I'm assuming there'll be a certain percentage of revenue lost with people just opting in for trash pickup? Has that kind of been discussed at all? And you know, in other words, and I know there's maybe not the core issue here, but there will be, you know, the thought is there will be people that'll just, well, at this point, it's time to opt out and just go with another service. And that may or may not benefit the town. So I don't know if the end result is what it looks like, you know, with that. And before you answer that, I just did want to say, from a general sense, obviously this is comes at a unique time or a difficult time for a lot of people in that, you know, the tax bills just came out and people's taxes went up $500, $600, $700 this time around on the back of a substantial increase the last time and the last time before that. Everyone on this board is well aware of that, as well as the other boards in town. So I know that this is probably going to raise, in general, a lot of that fear. But again, the question was back to that, like, revenue potential.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thomas, I don't think we really talked about the elasticity of demand if we went to a higher pay by bag rate. Other than recognizing that, yes, it's going to happen to an extent.
Right. And this is kind of a lot of the reasoning behind having all of the waste streams come into the transfer station cover not just the tipping cost, but also the entire cost, so that if there is a reduction of one stream, it's not some change in taxes in some other stream. Yeah, and again, the transfer station isn't a revenue driver. It's just, you know, whatever it's costing us, that's what we raise. So if there is a reduction of waste coming in, if everyone started using a hauler to take their trash out of town, then that would only be a net benefit because it would just reduce taxes.
Dave DiPiano, 68 Brookwood Lane. Couple quick things. I was part of a comparable green bag program in another city. The major difference there was we actually had curbside pickup of trash and recyclables. So in that case, I was very much rewarded for not putting my recyclables into the trash. That's point one. Point two, we have private trash service, all clear. My understanding is they bring it to an incinerator in Concord. There is zero, and I repeat, zero incentive for people to recycle because they do not have recyclables. We've talked a lot about private trash service, and I was wondering, just as a show of hands from the board, how many of you use private trash service? Okay.
I'm the only one. Really? I use empty trash. They're great.
Yeah. Second, we've just heard from Bonnie about how do we reduce our impact, right? I can tell you as a young parent, things don't last the way they used to from decades ago. My parents had heavy equipment. They had all sorts of things that lasted for decades. I have a pot and pan that I can't cook more than 6 months before I have to replace it. Okay. Shared services, the transfer station and trash is a shared service. We have many other in town: fire, police, the public works, mowing of our grass. We don't charge a soccer player more because they play on the grass. We don't charge people more when they need to have a fire department come out and put out a fire because their house is bigger. Getting rid of trash is a shared service. I'm very okay with paying my taxes, and I already do. When we have to true up at the end of the year, we cover the cost of the transfer station. Why are we trying to say, let's double down on a failed program of green plastic bags, put more plastic into the earth? We already know, and I guarantee anyone who's used them in this town tell you that the terrible quality. Sometimes you can't even find the right size. And I don't do my grocery shopping in town, so I have to make an extra trip, which is extra carbon emissions, just to get another trash bag, to put my existing trash bag in, to drive down to the dump, to dump it in. It makes no sense. We're adding extra overhead just by talking about this green bag program. Can we just please enforce the residents of Hopkinton and Warner or Webster and just say, you can't bring your trash here if you're not a resident? We all pay the taxes. It doesn't matter whether you have a green bag in there or not. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
William Palazzolo, the elder. Indian Ridge Road. I'm not sure everyone here knows why, when that pay-by-bag program was passed, that it was never enforced. So I'm going to tell you. We had a person in charge of the water department, which also covers the transfer station. He hated that program. And he instructed the people that were employed at the transfer station to let everybody dump whatever they wanted to dump in green bags or otherwise. I guarantee you there isn't a person in this room that knew more about running a water department and running a transfer station than that gentleman. Just for an example, we got into that single stream deal with all these other towns. He foresaw that that was a raw deal, and he went and got us out of it. And we got all our money back, and it was a lot of money. A year or 2 or 3 later, it went bust, and every town that was involved lost a fortune. So this guy knew what he was doing. And one other fact about pay per bag, it's a regressive tax. You have a young family, you got 2 or 3 kids, you're going to produce more trash than my wife and I who live alone. So why are we penalizing people? At least with property taxes, it's based on the value of your home. If you own a mansion, you pay more. If you own a small house, you pay less, which is fair, at least in my opinion. So for a lot of reasons, I'm really opposed to this pay-by-bag program. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Oh, dear God.
And just for those who don't know, the gentleman's name was Steve Cloud, now deceased. Great guy.
Was. All right, Amanda.
Amanda Gilman, 168 Westridge Circle. I had got the numbers from the original paper bag because last time I spoke, I think Mr. Lipoma said that it has been had to be rescinded multiple times. And it is true, 7 times. And it was fairly close. And the initial vote, even to bring it in, was 259 to 236. So it has been really
Amanda,
close.
hold on, I'm sorry, 1 second. Bonnie, you have to stop disturbing people in the audience. Please, people are trying to listen and speak, okay? Thank you.
So this is definitely a
Sorry,
rational
Amanda.
conversation I'm trying to have here. So I served on the Hennecker Solid Waste Disposal Committee, Assessment Committee, 2 years. And it happened to be the same time that Hopkinton was looking at paper bag. And we came up after 2 years, we had a very diverse group. So that's my one question is the group that came up with this, I'm kind of interested to know how diverse the group that brought this in was, because I read through the materials and it's full of conjecture and opinion, and there's not a tremendous amount of support in terms of like what it actually could do for a small town, because it's not out there. And that's what we found in Henniker, that it, unless it's combined with curbside recycling, which is incentivizes paper bag and pickup, that people are almost penalized and very unhappy with it. And what it does is it turns the transfer station into a place of misery. We also spent two weeks with the transfer station employees, and they said, every single one of them, I will not be the trash police. None of them wanted that nasty job. And in a time where it's hard to find labor and hard to find workers, I feel horrible that you're going to make them become the trash police. And I guarantee you that's not what they want to do. So we came up with a program, Bonnie, where we doubled down on what we did. We went to the school, we got field trips. The kids from the school came to the transfer station. That was a field trip. We showed them what we did. We showed them the pictures that you're trying to circulate. I am very much pro recycling, 100%. I'm against the green bags in the way we do it. If you bring me curbside, I'm all over it, okay? So we can do a better education program. Instead of making it punitive and unhappy, we should make it positive. And that can be done. And we have a wonderful committee of people who are committed to it. So if they could turn their efforts perhaps to, you know, bringing the kids to the thing, improving signage, making it more accessible, and keeping the transfer station a wonderful place, those employees are fantastic. And I hate to see the flavor of what we have in our wonderful town change. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.
I just want to say one thing, because I do really, I appreciate you bringing up the fact that it has been voted on many times. And I just want to note that last select board meeting, when we were discussing this, it came up multiple times as to whether or not we should just be continuing this at all. And I think it's really important to note that over those times, it's never been like far and away everyone wants to do green bags or everyone wants to get rid of it. It has been really close. And I think that's why we felt it was really important to have this public hearing to hear all this input. And I personally want to say that I really appreciate everyone being here to provide this input. It's extremely helpful. So thank you.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Rita.
Oh, you threw me your curveball. I was gonna say my name and address. First of all, I'd like to thank Billy Palazzolo for so eloquently speaking my thoughts. The pay by the bag, like he said, is for 14 years. It's, if we can't figure out if it's won or lost, it's a loss, because we're working, that tells me we're working really hard to make it a win. So that didn't work. This probably isn't under this topic, but if you put that $5 fee onto our already egregious tax bills, so that people that are here out of town, like they have a summer home here, or they come up to go skiing or whatever, they're paying it too. Because I had heard rumblings about maybe tacking it, like when I registered my car. So I just wanted to throw that thought out there. I would prefer it to be attached to my tax bill personally. The green bags, in my opinion, and that's why I said I will not be showing up at the dump with one on Wednesday, have never worked. They just, you see people trying to scoop the stuff out of their car, or they've got it double bagged, which for me is twice the plastic going underground or to a burner or wherever it goes. So I just wanted to reiterate that. Thanks.
Thank you, Rita.
I would let you buy. They say it ain't over till the fat lady sings. I'm not singing yet.
Andy, can you just say your names? We have a minute.
You remember Candy Garvin, 515 Boundtree Road. I don't like conflict, despite what Gary says. Don't listen to him. We've been here for a long time, before green bags and after green bags and during COVID and not. There is a lot of talk about it. Do I have an opinion? Yes, but does it matter in the whole run?
Yes.
What we want to do is recycle. I don't think there's anybody here that doesn't want to recycle. I'm gonna cross over to the dark side now. When we go to the transfer station and we recycle, religiously good about it. Even though we don't go to church, we do go to the transfer station.
Praise the Lord.
Praise the green bag goddess. The problem happens not on your watch, but how many years ago, when there was a discussion about Webster. Webster. Part of our problem really is something that we shouldn't or can't or don't talk about. We can all get the green bag. And I don't even know if most of us would care about the green bags.
Andy, will you speak into the mic?
if-
so we can get you-
if
Thank you.
They were, if you can actually put your trash in them after you recycle and it fits and it's a good size. Yeah. But when you go to the transfer station and see all the others from Webster without green bags, that is a needle. We think that there's conflict in this room. There is conflict in this room. There shouldn't be conflict. We all have our opinions. Some people like to go blah, blah, blah. I don't care. What they did in Webster, what they did in Warner, what they do in Henniker. We're not Henniker, we're Hopkinton. We hope that you'll make the best decision on the information that you're getting here. People would love to recycle. They aren't always in favor of those green bags because we feel it's an extra cost. Give me a $5 fee to get my tag and have everybody pay an extra $5 for the year. I'm finished almost before that. But thank you for everything you're doing. Thank everybody who has come up here and put their neck out one way or the other on whatever side they're on. We're all passionate about it. But don't be passionate against somebody else.
Thank you, Candy. And I will just add that Webster would have to adopt this as we did at town meeting, and they have opted not to do that. And we've discussed it with their select board, and it's just not happening at the moment. So that is a very obvious challenge that one town in a 2-town transfer station has adopted it and one has not.
Gary Arando, East Pennacook Road. Green bags, white bags, enforcement.
Yeah.
Enforcement. Tom, I think, and yourself were both present for 2 hours, one Saturday morning, 3 hours. There was a 7% turn around. Is that correct? Is that the right number?
Yeah,
Of
about that.
people who coming in were not even town residents.
Of either town,
I'm sorry,
of either town.
of either town, right?
Where's that?
So how do we enforce? We have to enforce. Stickers, green bags don't mean it. Hill of beans, if there's nobody being the trash police. Okay, so how do you fix that? Can't get help. Nobody wants a confrontation. Nobody wants to be told yourself, I'm going in anyways. How do you do it? To me, it's a simple way. It's gonna cost some money, but it's gonna straighten some things out. I've explained it to Ken. I think I have one over to and yourself as well. There's a gated system where you go and I've got my car washed at Washville. For $20 a month, you get a little radio frequency tag on your windshield. You drive up to a lane, scanner reads it, the gate opens, you drive in, you get your car washed. You have that same scanner on the way out. You have a turnaround area for people who don't have one. You got to get one. You have to have one. You're a town resident, you be one. A little surveillance camera. Cameras are not expensive. And then you put a camera down by the gate as well, because you'll get some people who won't want that sticker and they'll just throw their trash in front of the gate and so on and so forth. So you try to cover it that way. So you need enforcement. That's the key, is enforcement. And nobody at the transfer station, be it a good job or a bad job, is checking anything. Okay, for a green bag, or for a resident, or for a dump sticker, or for anything else. You got to enforce it if you're going to make it work. That's what I got to say.
Thank you. If anyone online wants to speak, you can raise your hand, by the way, and we will unmute you. Oh.
Hi.
Hi, Jack.
Jack Ruderman, 15 Cottage Street. I've been a resident of town for 25 years. I've been using the green bag since the program was first implemented. And I support the program. I recognize that it is not working currently very well. But I think it is important to recognize that there are more than 24 other towns in the state, and I'm sure hundreds of towns, if not thousands across the country, that have similar programs, and they work. Not all of them, but the ones where they find the right formula. And that formula has got to include enforcement and verification at the transfer station. The programs are successful generally. Hopkinton may be unique, and it may be that for all the reasons the situation is so complicated and so unique that the green bag program may not be workable. I'm totally willing to accept that, and if that's the case, then fine, we try something else. But I completely disagree with people who are saying we've had 14 years of failure, it's time to quit. I would say we just heard tonight that when the first 2 or 3 years this program was implemented, we had someone in a position of authority over the transfer station employees telling them that he hated the law or the ordinance and that they should enforce it and people should be able to just bring whatever waste they want and ignore the green bag requirement. I don't think we've ever recovered from that. I don't think we have done a good job of putting up signs, educating folks, saying, hey, if you live in Hopkinton, you got to use these bags. This is where you get them, et cetera, et cetera. And then have someone there verifying them. The other issue that seems to come up a lot is the quality of the bags. Again, I've been using them for 14 years. I've not had a problem. I don't know what people are putting in the bags, but I would say if people are putting in things that I don't, that are heavier or bulkier or harder to deal with, well then let's get a better bag. Like the technology exists. So if the bags themselves are the problem, let's fix the bags. And let's give it a shot and tell people why we're doing this, that the goal is to reduce waste and to reduce the cost running the transfer station. And give it a shot, see if it works. 12 months from now, we come back and it's not working, then let's kill the program. I'd be fine with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Rita, I see a hand, so before you go again, we'll do the hand and. Hi, Roger.
Thank you, and thank you for all you're doing this evening. I was here when the program's Roger Turcott, South Shore Drive, Kentucky. I was here when the program started, and I asked a question at that town meeting. How are we going to determine if the program is working? And I didn't get an answer to that other than increased recycling. My second question was, how are we going to decide that we're increasing recycling and that it's a direct correlation to people using green bags? We have been chasing a ghost for the last 14 years, and my concern is twofold. I don't think we can measure outcome, and yet, if you're running a business, and this is a business, we need to have measurable goals so that the decision makers can sit down every 6 months or a year and look at data and say, this is what we had decided we would use as the goal to say the program is working. Now, I recycle, I don't use the green bags because I'm tired of picking the stuff up in my garage floor, and it's not heavy stuff, it's just normal stuff. And I compost, so that's not in the green bag. The other thing that concerns me tonight is the decision that's going to be made is going to affect the relationship between taxpayers and officials. And I would really ask you to consider that. Because here's the case. I can change someone's behavior through education. I can change someone's behavior through motivation. I would discourage you from trying to change someone's behavior through enforcement. That's not what our town is about. And I would also encourage the group, the volunteers, to catch people doing things right. So if you're at the transfer station and someone is recycling, just simply walk over and say thank you. Give us some data on, is the recycling going up? Are we making more money this year than we made last year? If that information is out there, I have never seen it. So rather than trying to change someone's behavior through a system of you must do this, and if you don't, we're going to punish you, I think people in this town are willing if they're given the information. And I'm going to close by sharing a sign that I saw in our Kentucky Village, one of our businesses in Kentucky Village. And I just found it appropriate, I think, for tonight. It says, we don't need a handful of people doing zero waste perfectly. We need millions doing it imperfectly. Thank you for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Roger. Rita, unless you have a quick question, there's someone behind you who has not spoken on this.
I just have a quick comment.
Yeah.
I didn't want to get a red card.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm the last house on the left on a dead end road. Last spring was the first time I didn't get charged for there was like 12 tires. You can't believe the stuff we pick up from our driveway, and we have camera pointed. My husband got yelled at for kidnapping because he backed the truck across the road to say, pick your crap up. They throw it in our ditch now. What are they gonna do if they're gonna get a $200 fine and get booted from the dump? Do I need to put a dumpster down there for people? But that was my other thought with where this is all going. I
Okay.
put $5.
Thank you, Rita.
Oh, yeah. Christopher Gross, Checkerberry Lane. Enforcement, a couple people spoke about enforcement. Can I hear from you guys, what is the plan for enforcing the new green bag rate?
So I want to just clarify that we don't have a new rate
Okay.
yet.
So what we're gonna do,
We have a proposed rate, and part of the proposed rate was to raise,
pay someone
pay somebody.
80,000
No.
with benefits? No,
No.
not 80,000 total,
Not
80,000 with benefits? Is that
No.
the number I heard?
No.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question.
I think we,
We heard earlier that we're $400,000 in the hole,
maybe a part-time person.
part-time.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear that this was a comment at our last meeting, and this was discussed at the select board meeting, but there was not a majority agreeing with that. And
Okay.
so that's not like, that's
So-
not something that we're like voting on tonight or
Understood.
anything.
If we're not going to enforce it and we're going to increase the rate on these bags, you're just burdening the 10% of people, because I'm still not gonna use a green bag. Unless you're threatening me with force, the cops, I'm still not going to use a green bag, but I'm still gonna recycle, because that's what I do. I actually don't know anyone that doesn't recycle. Everyone I know goes to the dump, they recycle, they dump their trash. I'm hearing, well, yeah, we've got a green bag program. We just haven't tried it right. We haven't done it the right way. That's what the communists say about communism. Oh, it just hasn't been done the right way yet. It's a failed system. The green bags are a failed system. It doesn't work in this town, and continuing it, I mean, you're gonna have the same problem. You're gonna have a 10% acceptance rate unless you're forcing everyone with the police, which I think is the wrong direction. That's it.
Thank you. All right, I think he was up, then Catherine. Hi.
Dave Lambert, 305 Galloping Hill. So the gentleman before me brought up my question, or one of my questions. If you're paying another salary to enforce this, basically green bags are just to pay for the person to enforce it. So there's no offset to anything. The next question is, or I keep hearing the comment that there's been a warrant article for the last 10 years to do away with the green bag program. But the problem is we have like 200 people out of 4,500 that actually come to the town meeting. So if this again is another reason SB2 should be adopted, I guarantee you if SB2 is adopted, this would have been voted away many, many years ago, guaranteed. Again, personal opinion, but I truly believe that. The next question is, the green bags were always said to, supposed to increase recycling. Now I've been in this town for about 25 years. I've been recycling since the mid-80s in the town I grew up in. Still recycle everything. Glass bottles I get from the Intuitive Creamery, so I went through, separated tissues from this and that, picked through the garbage, make sure everything fit. And so now 14 years into this program, I've never seen as much recycled at the dump. It's stockpiling behind the building. I've never seen that much just sitting there. So my question is it going anywhere? We're recycling it, which is, everyone feels good, bring our stuff, but it just sits there. Now we bought containers to stack it in because it's overflowing behind the building. I can't even put cardboard in the cardboard area because it's overflowing into the road. Paper, you can't even get close to it because it's overflowing. So you can't tell me there's a decline in the amount of recycling. The question is, how much is being recycled, or how much on a Tuesday or Thursday is just getting thrown in the hopper with the large boats, Jeep fiberglass hard tops, and everything else that we chuck in the hopper. In the back where the brush and trees, and we have a compost area for pet waste. Nothing's composted. Everything's in plastic bags and cat litter buckets. So my understanding is that that's all scooped up, brought from the compost area and dumped in the hopper. So we're trying to promote all these things that I don't think they're actually happening behind the scenes. It's just stockpile. I've never seen that much. I mean, it's just bales and bales of clear number 2 plastic, or huge stacks of aluminum cans. They're just sitting there, or they're stuffed into these shipping containers that we keep buying at an extra cost.
Wrap it up.
Okie doke.
Thank you, Dave. And I just want to, I think, just to respond quickly on the recycling piece, it is recycled eventually, but I think you bring up, an obvious difficulty with recycling. That's partly why we can only accept certain numbers. And I know people wish we could accept yogurt and salad, big plastic salad things, but it's tough. It's hard to find, recycling entities to take that makes sense and that aren't like
It's not
through the
really
roof
recycled.
expensive.
That's the problem.
But things might get backed up, but we do have arrangements where they actually are sent to
Okay.
recycling.
It just seems like, in the 23 years I've been going to the train, I've never seen it that backed up before, which begs the question, like, how much is actually being bought and being recycled? I know a lot of it, most companies don't like to, because certain plastics, recycled plastic doesn't work. Most companies want the virgin plastic, so they're not buying it. Glass used to go out, but no one's buying it anymore. So it's still that warm fuzzy feeling that we're recycling and doing great for the planet, but is it really going anywhere?
Yeah, and there's plenty of people who do wish cycling where they just throw stuff in because they want to hope that it gets recycled and it doesn't, and then that clogs up the whole system. So yeah, thank you. All right, I think that I don't know, Cheryl, thank you.
Pat LaCree, Highland Avenue. Just very briefly, I support the pay-as-you-throw program as a unit cost based service that we pay for what we throw. And I think it does have merit, and I think it does have the potential to be well functioning and provide more revenue and reduce the waste stream. I would say that I worked at a transfer station in another town. I don't know how many people in the audience have worked in a transfer station. At the transfer station at which I worked, we did not have pay-as-you-throw, but we did have mandatory recycling. So my job as an attendant was to enforce proper recycling right. And it was a lot of education, and it was a lot of talk and a lot of dialogue. And I have to tell you that many more people appreciated the help than ever yelled at me for telling them to not put their glass in the hopper. So the idea that the, dump police are going to be attacked, there's always going to be some faction of that may happen, but I would just offer that as a part of enforcement, it doesn't necessarily indicate that it's going to be a, aggressive, negative, terrible experience for the staff. At least that wasn't mine. And I was a staff. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last one, I promise. Cheryl Morris, 396 Park Avenue. Two things. We look at other towns around us because we didn't invent the mousetrap. Somebody's always inventing a new mousetrap. We're always looking for that information. And I'm singing to the choir here because you're looking hard and heavy. And I appreciate that. And I'm glad you shared that with us. So, and to hear the idea, if I heard the numbers correctly, that there's 24 towns in New Hampshire that are using the bags. There's 200 and something, was it 24? 221. 221 towns? 221. There's only 221 towns.
Right, total town, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's almost 250 towns in the state of New Hampshire, but there's 20-something towns that are, which is 10%. So there's a reason that that's stuck at that, and we were at the 14 years, not gone further. I do believe we need to look to, and I'm sure you are, enforcing who is using our dump. And rather than hiring a full-time employee, maybe you've done this before, and I'm sorry if you have, and you haven't heard it. Consulting with TJ and looking for special detail randomly, periodically, because no one wants to be the enforcer down there. I'm going to say it again. Henniker did that and it worked because some of the selectmen tried it, but it wasn't a favorite place to be. But no one ever knew when the enforcement was going to happen. So it was a good thing. But I love the other gentleman's idea about a monitor, technology wise. It's a great thing to look into. Thank you.
Thank you. Bonnie.
I brought information today. Somebody just asked for data and thought that would be useful. I did bring information and data today, and I tried to hand it out to a few people and they said they didn't want to see it. But part of my data is that pay-by-bag income was at a high in 2011 of $121,000. By 2022, the income from pay-by-bag, reflecting the reduced use of pay-by-bag, was at $17,000. If you look at the percentage of waste that was recycled, there is a direct correlation. The fewer green bags were purchased and used, the lower our recycling rate went. It was at an all-time high of 22%. The state average is 26%. We never reached even the state average. Last year, it was at 11.44%. Tell me why all these people are saying, you know, we all recycle and we're all doing such a great job. I don't think that the data bears that up. We're creating way more tonnage of waste and we're recycling far less percent of that waste. I also have been taking pictures in the hopper and I brought them and nobody wanted to see them. But if you look at this picture, it is full of recyclables. Cardboard, magazines, cans, Kleenex boxes, paper, you name it, boards. Those are all recyclables that people are just throwing in the hopper. Photographs don't lie. This isn't the only photograph I've taken. It wasn't a one-off day. There is so much stuff that doesn't get recycled that could be recycled. What will be the incentive? If you don't like green bags, what is our incentive? We have designed and put up all new signs. We did a whole program on handing out reusable bags to the town at the polls. Every day on Earth Day, we have a table out there with lots of information. We do articles in Susan Covert's newsletter about waste and waste reduction. We do a lot. And we come to a meeting and I can't believe what was said about my article tonight. If somebody could show me, Sabrina, if you could pull that up and show me where those words are, they're not in there. And I don't understand why people are not looking at the facts and the data instead of just being belligerent and being mean.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Online?
No, Catherine was also standing up, but you go ahead. I think you were standing there.
Tricia Lambert, 305 Galloping Hill Road. So let's back up a little bit. when Dave was up here, my husband was up here, you talked a little bit about, of the things that he witnessed. As Bonnie had mentioned, you know, you do witness things that are in that hopper. Remember, Webster goes there, so they're gonna dump those things in there. So it doesn't mean necessarily anything as it relates to Hopkins residents. Just a quick note. So you had mentioned wishful recycling, which people do. We all know that. Because they don't understand the numbers and what is actually recycled. Back in the day, when we first started this, we had things like that were not recyclable. Styrofoam comes to mind, big items. And they said, just put it into the big 55-gallon bag, whatever, and you can throw it in the hopper. So all of that gets thrown in there. I mean, that's the way it's always been. If it can't fit into that recycling bag and it's not recyclable, we were able to throw that into the hopper. And that has been 14 years worth. Okay, so that's that point. You had mentioned that it's trouble finding recyclers to buy the stuff. Is that correct? Is that what you meant by that comment?
I mean, my sense is like, the market goes up and down and it
Sure.
can be a challenge.
But generally speaking, right now, is it easy to get a recycler to buy the goods? Honest.
It's generally.
Okay, do you know where that recycling goes? Just because someone gives you $1 for it, do you know for a fact that that was recycled? It's just a yes or no question. Do we know? I would encourage every single one of you to do research on that. And I'm not going to tell you why I know this, but I have some experience with plastics going back about 50 years. And I'm going to tell you, it's a scam. Okay? Maybe not all of it. There are some things that end up back in the right place, but you need to look at it. And a lot of these, the NRA, they're all propaganda arms to sell you on this so that the little people will suffer, get paid twice. And I understand the whole back and forth on that, but I'm going to tell you that if you don't know where that stuff is getting recycled 100%, you cannot tell these people that it's getting recycled. End of story. Which means if you continue to do that, it's fraud. Thank you.
I will just say, our intent in trying to find recycling entities to take these, our intent is to have these things recycled.
It's not. If it's not, it's fraud. If you're telling people what it is, it's fraud.
Catherine Mitchell, Boundtree Road. I just want to talk about the bag issue, which is really an incentive program. The state endorses it, or at least they had when it was instituted. I think they still do. And research has shown that an incentive program is really the only one that has been effective at increasing recycling, if it's implemented correctly. Mandatory recycling actually produces less of an increase. It's not popular. So that was one of the reasons that pay by bag came about. I'm certainly concerned if we're only recycling 11% in town now. We can certainly do better. But on the issue, I heard somebody speak to the fact that it's in everyone's best interest to have the transfer station and let us bring our trash there, just as we all share the costs of police, protection, fire, schools, and all that. I guess I would suggest that those are all things that we do share and that they are in the public interest. I don't think it's in the public interest to produce more trash. So an incentive program is designed to reduce that. You don't have to recycle, but if you do, you save on the bag costs. And if you choose to not recycle, you buy more bags. That's considered more fair to everyone. It's more equitable because if you have a single person, perhaps a senior on a fixed income who produces very little trash, they're not helping to subsidize a large family who's producing a lot of trash. If you think of it more like a utility rather than a town service, we don't subsidize each other's electric bills or oil bills. If you choose to keep your house at 75 degrees, you pay more. If you turn it down, you pay less. It's the same with trash. If you produce more, you are expected under an incentive program to pay for what you produce, and vice versa. If you recycle as much as you can and compost, then you pay less. The other point I guess I just want to address quickly is the fact that it's often considered a regressive tax. Sadly, it is regressive. It's not a tax, but our electric bills, our oil bills, our property taxes, all of those are regressive. There is help through human services for people that really struggle to buy bags. So that's there, but just like everything else we have to use as a utility or a service, we do pay for the amount that we use. I am in support of the program. I do have concerns with the way it's been implemented over time, and I would like to see a year or two where we could give it a shot at proper implementation and see if we could then do something. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even see that. If we could do something to increase recycling through the program. One quick thing was, one thing we looked at to try to help with recycling was a satellite place to bring recyclables. There were issues around that, but we might want to consider that again.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please come up.
My name is George Langwasser, and 14 years ago, I sat in the same place you people are and was part of the decision to bring bags to the town of Hopkinton. It was a good idea at that time. It encouraged recycling. And the idea was, if you recycled, you could put what little waste was left in a green bag and turn around and get rid of it that way. Times have changed, ladies and gentlemen, changed drastically. Number one, town of Webster, you won't find a green bag in that town. Go down to the Harold Martin School and see how many green bags are there from the children. The same thing for the school here and the one at the high school. If you go around and you look at some of the other places in town, the co-ops, the condos, they all have waste receptacle systems that take it away. There's no green bags. Apartments are the same. And someone just got finished saying that there's only about 10% of the people using green bags. Why do we want to punish those 10% people when others are turning around and recycling? I'm suggesting it's time we got rid of the green bags once and for all. And secondly, in terms of stickers, so that you know someone is from Hopkinton or Webster, have the town clerk issue them. They know who is the resident because they have the registration there. I wish you all good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Bonnie, come on up.
Again, nobody wants data or information, but I brought some anyway. There was a study done of several pay-as-you-throw towns, including Hopkinton. Hopkinton's total transfer station expense after revenue in the year that they did this study, which is 2021, I believe. Our expense was $385,000. $385,746 to be exact. Compare this with Littleton, New Hampshire, also a pay-as-you-throw town. Their total expense for their transfer station and their similar population to us was $85,000. Again, our transfer station expense was $385,746. Littleton manages to have an expense of $85,881. Why is that? I ask people to ask themselves, what are they doing that we're not, that allows them to have an expense of $85,000?
Thank you. Anyone else online? All right.
I want to correct something.
Okay, hold on. Elizabeth, hang on, and Ken's gonna say something and then Elizabeth.
I just want to correct something Bonnie said about Littleton, and I think I'm looking at the same report you did. It says that the total transfer station expense budget, it was 466,000. The actual was 488,000.
I'm sorry.
This is the NRRA study.
Okay. Okay.
Go to the
All right,
bottom.
let's let Elizabeth speak, please.
Hi there, 265 Crowell Road. I was listening to this actually with my whole family during dinner, which we usually do not have anything technology on, but this is important. And I'm actually really glad that my kids and my husband and I heard both sides of this issue, because it's hard. It's not easy. I don't know what the right answer is, but we were all really discouraged to hear people stand up and admit and be adamant that they will not buy bags. They live in this town. They pay taxes. We are all part of a community, and it is awful to hear people be proud of that. That is my opinion. Everyone can feel how they want to feel about this issue, but it's not going to work in this town if people don't do their part. I keep hearing different sides of the story of, well, we don't want to hear about what other towns do. We want to focus on Hopkinton. Yet other people say, well, this is what Henniker does. Well, this is what so-and-so does. Well, this is what this, it worked in some towns and it doesn't in others. And there are reasons for that. It's not a universal answer and a solution in every town. The same thing is not true for every town. We are Hopkinton, and we have decided that we're doing this. If we don't want it, then we need to vote it down. I think, I mean, this is just me listening to everyone on both sides. If people are willingly not buying green bags and they have a Hopkinton sticker, I don't understand why we wouldn't say, hey, you can't do that. You're a taxpayer here. Follow the rules or don't. You can't dump your trash here. This is really simple. My kids looked at us and said, what? How can they dump trash and not pay for bags and know it? Personally, I'd be embarrassed. Apparently, a lot of people in this town are not embarrassed to do that. That's your prerogative. But when everyone complains about all this, and we have solutions that the select board has put forward to try to solve them, let's give them a chance. If we need someone to, okay, I see that. If we need someone to enforce it, I'm all for it. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Lauren, come on up.
Lauren Clement, 86 Maple Street. I'm not a fan of the bags. I understand the effort that went into it. I spoke on the steps in length with people about this, but it seems that the majority of everyone in town that I've spoken to, this has left a bad taste in their mouth. We're done with it. So as the previous speaker said, I guess the next step, if people are that opposed to it, would be to, if you guys aren't going to put together a warrant article to repeal it, then I'm assuming it could be done by petition. And if that's the case, would it need 50% or be a super majority of 60% to repeal the green bags?
So it can be a petition warrant article, which I think is the only way it's been before town meeting in the past. And it's just it's not governed by statute the way like SB 2 is. And so I believe it's just, right, it's just a normal, regular majority.
Okay, thank you. I had one other thought process that came up, and I apologize because I'm backtracking a little bit about leaves and brush. I'm an awesome neighbor and I have a truck and I tend to take my neighbor's leaves and brush to the transfer station for them. So for people like myself that do this nice kind deed to neighbors, there may be less of that neighborly stuff going on. If you're gonna fee me $10, I'm not gonna go ask my neighbor for $10. So there's that too.
Thanks, Lauren. Oh, yes, online we have Lisa Russo.
Hi there. I know I don't sound like Lisa. That's my wife. So I'm Brian Russo on Hopkinton Road. So I got a question. We've been here for 25 years, and I remember before and after. Part of my question is maybe you guys can answer. I know before the bag system, how did we pay for the transfer prior to the bags? Was that part of our property tax or town tax or something like that? And part of my thought with that, if it was, how much does that tax need to go up automatically to cover shortages that we have that we're paying for the bags? Because in my mind, we get, if it's still part of the town tax or wherever that's buried, now we're getting double tax because we pay for it in our taxes and we're paying for it in bags.
I guess, yes to the first question, before, pay by bag existed, the transfer station was paid out of, property taxes as well as Webster's 25% share and, commercial and recycling receipts. The amount that was included in the budget for 2024 is an offset to costs of the transfer station from pay by bag was $45,000.
So has anybody looked at what amount of our property tax would increase to cover that shortage? I'm guessing it was be a small amount for the entire town. And then you could do away with all of the bags and all of the drama, I guess.
Yeah. 45,000, I believe, is less than 1% of the town portion of the tax rate.
Less than 1 cent.
Less than 1 cent.
1 cent.
So I would ask everybody here what their thoughts of if I had to pay an additional 25 cents, like that's not a burden because you spend more money running around going to get the bags, separating things. And I mean, I recycle, I have no problem with that, but the bags are just a burden on us where if you said, hey, we need to bump you up by a nickel, a quarter, whatever the small amount is, because it's a small shortage. I'm wondering how many people would be amicable to that.
So can
Thank
I
you.
just make one note though on that?
Yes, on Thomas.
And I just want to make very clear, I am not super excited about changing greenback prices or greenbacks in general. I really appreciate all this feedback. But in terms of the taxation and the double taxation and all of that, at one point in time, the greenbacks did bring in $102,000 of revenue. So that would have been a different scenario. And so that's more than a quarter of our current amount of the budget for the transfer station. If the greenbags were 100% enforced, that would be projected to bring in somewhere over $400,000 of revenue. So when you look at whether or not,
Hold on, let
that's
Thomas
the
finish.
whole thing. It's not whether or not you're being taxed double, it's whether or not you're paying for it through greenbags or if you're paying for it through taxes. And so if everyone's doing the same system, it kind of works. If everyone's doing 6 different systems, it really doesn't work. And so I'm really not trying to make an argument for or against one thing. I just, in terms of like whether or not it's offsetting taxes or whether you're paying more or paying less, as a whole, the town is going to pay the same amount for the same amount of trash that's being wasted. It's just whether or not we pay for it through one system or we pay through it from another system.
One system.
You want to say?
Oh, do you have other? All right, thanks, Brian. Norm, or I don't know who was first.
Norm Gupel, 121 Amesbury. I just had a question. So I use green bags. Whatever you guys say I need to do, I do. Simple as that.
Thanks, Norm.
And I gotta say, this town does a great job recycling. I actually get mad at them because they spend 10 minutes talking to their neighbor at the recycling place. And I literally am in line for like 10 minutes. So we need to like do a time limit for that. But my thing is, it's a problem for everybody, right? We don't have a solution to it. And my one comment, or one question I had for you guys was at the end of the year, when you guys have that deficit of 400 something thousand, and it's reconciled, does Webster kick in a little bit at the end, a certain portion or percentage of that? Because the reason I'm thinking that is because we can't track how much waste they're submitting to the dump or at the transfer station. So if we're not able to keep track of how much they're doing, then my comment is are we taking substantial hit because we're not tracking what they're bringing? So that's, I don't know the answer to that. I just wanted to ask you.
The answer is no. Webster's paying its full share.
So would that be this?
Just to be clear, there's no deficit. That
Okay.
the way the system is and the way it's budgeted is part of those costs come from taxation.
Okay.
You have your revenue plus taxation, which makes up the difference, and that's the approved budget. So I think saying there's a deficit is a little misleading.
Okay, but when there's a percentage of waste from them and we have to get rid of it, there is a number that we have to offset it with, correct? Okay, and so we as the town of Hopkinton are using our money to offset it, and Webster has a fixed amount?
Yeah.
Okay.
They pay 25% of the cost.
Okay, so
And
whatever.
they receive, and they receive 25% credit for 25%
Okay,
of the revenue.
no, that's what I want to know. I wanted to
Fully
see
shared.
how it was
Except for green
reconciled.
bag revenue.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
Except for
Right.
green bag revenue.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Norm.
Becky Ekstrom, Boundary Road. We talked about the tonnage fee being $93 per ton. What's the cost for recycling tonnage?
Ooh, great question. It varies, it varies a lot, and it changes every year.
And it's
We do have,
most often revenue, not expense.
Well,
Recycling.
most of them don't, from the NRA report, the revenue doesn't fully cover the cost of the expense of like gathering it and storing it and stashing it and doing all of that. So we get revenue from it, but it doesn't, like from the NRA report, it doesn't fully offset for some of it.
Except it doesn't go in the hopper.
Yes,
Which
right.
means recycling, even if you're breaking even, you're saving the
Breaking
tipping fee.
Right.
Okay. And that's contracted annually with the recycling centers, or how does that work?
It's a commodity that goes up and down with the
Yeah.
market.
I'm just wondering if there's opportunity to, if we didn't do green bags, put more signage up around the hopper saying, hey, save your tax dollars, recycle, because we're gonna have revenue coming in instead of like costs going out. Thank you.
Thank you. Arnold.
Arnold Coda. I think it's pretty clear and has been probably right along. And I don't mean just tonight. Do we really have a two-part reason that has become at least a one-part dilemma on this? We want to encourage recycling and if possible, send it to whatever the maximum may be in this town, and that's a societal reason. I support that. I support that completely. The other side is we also have a financial reason for wanting to do that. It strikes me that we cannot solve to whatever extent the financial reason if we are unable to solve the societal part of it. I don't have an answer for the societal side. Like other people who have spoken here, some of the other people who have spoken here tonight, Alice and I have been recycling since before the green bags. We still recycle. I will tell you that unless we never figured out really how to do it at home, it became a cumbersome process. Have the green bags there, and they have, I don't care what other color bags. I suppose we could also use green bags for non-recycling stuff, but we're still ending up with, for us, the boys are gone now, so it's just the two of us. We're down to 4 bags of recycling every 2 weeks. So I go, and I take it, long story short. I would like to say that some type of an enforcement program for getting people to recycle is necessary. I would hate to see that. I really would, because I think that would cause some number of people, this small 10%, to stop doing what they're doing. Might even stop what we're doing. We also, by the way, we compost everything except meat scraps at our house. That stuff, the green stuff stays there and it rots, and I throw it in the garden, and it does good things for the plants. You people face a dilemma. I wish I had some solution for you, some suggestion for you, but I don't. But I felt I wanted to convey to you how Alice and I look at this and how we feel. How much time exactly do I have left? 30 seconds. Okay. I'll sit down, somebody else may speak, and I'll come back and finish.
Thanks, Arnold. All right. One last call for people online, and people in the room, come on up if you want to speak.
My name's Kath Butcher. I'm at Old Henniker Road. And I just want to be brief. I would feel very badly for the employees working at the town transfer station if they had to become enforcers, because I feel like they've really changed the culture. I've been in town almost about 30 years, and they've worked really hard on education. You go and you ask them about this or about that, and they're very open. Jolene's come to the library and done education as far as like recycling and things like that. They had somebody come to the library and talk about composting. You can bring your compost to Works on Farm. Jolene did talk about like the cat litter piece, and that's not recycled. Those are just there so that they can keep the trailer level, and so that when they're trying to move stuff down, they don't get showered in cat litter. So it's not necessarily being recycled and then, or, you know, like it's not a farce that's now going in there, but I really think they're doing such a great job with education. They got great signage. I would feel really sad for them if they had to become enforcers. So that's.
Thank you. Is there anyone who has not spoken before? If Arnold, you want to finish your thought, you can do that. Looks like no one else's hand is up. Okay. Oh, hold on, Arnold. Hold on once. Arnold, one sec. Arnold, one sec.
Oh, sorry.
Susan Wallace, Kearsarge Avenue. At the risk of sounding too Pollyanna-ish, I just really want to acknowledge that it's pretty remarkable that we have people having this conversation in a town like this. I look at, this is not a very, this is a hard thing to be in charge of a town, and it's really remarkable to come out, and I see people who are my good friends on both sides and all the sides, and I don't have an answer, but I just want to acknowledge that this is kind of a remarkable place to live, and I hope that we see that we have more in common than not.
Thank
The
you.
end. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, Arnold Coda again. We have a horrendous problem in the world at large with trash. And we all know about it. We see it in the news. I think it's incumbent, should be incumbent upon virtually everybody to do something about the amount of trash and how we dispose of it. So I wanted to conclude by saying that it isn't just Hopkinton, it isn't just the state of New Hampshire, it isn't just the United States. I think we can look only to what we can do here in this town. And I hope that in some fashion we can increase the 10% rate to something higher than that. I do want to, I think, correct something that William Palazzolo, the elder, said when he spoke. I believe that the man to whom he was referring was Steve Clow. Back about a dozen or little more years ago, I proposed to the then Board of Select People to establish something that we call the Municipal Operations Improvement Committee. And they did. And I don't know, Ken, whether or not you were, I think, no, I know nobody here, and I wasn't sure about you.
I don't remember. So.
Yeah, okay. So in any event, a committee was formed and we had some really good people on that. Let me see, Les Cressy was on it, a fellow named John Woods, who has since sold and moved out of town. And I must apologize to Catherine Mitchell. I do not remember your husband's first name. I'm sorry? He was on it as well. And one of the things that we became concerned about was exactly the cost of our transfer station. I think it wasn't called that at the time, whatever it was called. So we invited Steve Clow to come to a meeting, and he really opened up the situation with our relationship to the place in Concord, where we, at that time, transferred all of our trash. One of the concerns was that the fly ash that was being produced over there was being dumped in Franklin and buried there, and there was an enormous liability for which we may not have been covered by our policy. So the long story short was that short-lived committee recommended to the board that we cancel that contract with Concord and do something else, and the board did, and that's how then we ended up to where we have been now for several years. I felt it necessary to clarify that point.
Thank you, Arnold. Okay, no one else online? Looks like people are leaving, not coming up to the mic. Okay, so we'll wrap up this input session, and I just want to say thank you to everyone who came out tonight and shared your thoughts. We really do appreciate it. And so I think process-wise, this sort of came up at the last meeting because we were discussing raising the price of green bags, sort of as we discussed the transfer station fee schedule ordinance. And so we can't, as a board, decide to rescind the green bag program because it was voted in at town meeting. But I will say we were going to put forward a warrant article on this a couple of years ago, and then we got such a response to that we then did not put that forward. I think that was 2 or 3 years ago. So process-wise, we don't have a ton of great options at the moment for what we can do. I think one of our options would be to sort of muddle along as we have been. And I think we could figure out if the board sort of has lost faith in the program and we want to plan on putting forward a warrant article for 2025 town meeting to rescind the program. Another option would be to try to double down on enforcement. I think that's sort of what Stephen was suggesting at the last meeting. And then I think, no matter what we do, I think there's things that we can change moving forward that will have a positive impact either way, one of which is trying to do something around making sure people from other towns are not coming in, because the little sample size you guys had seemed evident that people who are near the town border who may live in Concord are coming in. And so that's some low hanging fruit that we can address right off the bat. And I think even if the board after discussion decides, we're just going to sort of muddle along here as we have been, and we're not going to try to double down on enforcement, and we would like to rescind this particular program, I think this is very clearly part of a bigger conversation and an ongoing conversation about what can we do then. Maybe I've suggested before mandatory recycling. I think somebody shared tonight that is not super popular in other towns. I don't know. I haven't researched it that much, but coming up with other things we can do to get at waste management, get at trying to control costs. And so I'm just saying that to say this is not like, we're going to make some sort of decision and that's the end of the conversation. So I would be in favor of sort of finishing this conversation as a board and deciding, are we going to try to raise the price of the bags or not? What is our plan moving forward, and sort of get it wrapped up tonight if we could. However, I recognize it's 8 o'clock, and if people would like to push this particular conversation off, I could be convinced of that too.
I have a work conflict shortly, and so I would prefer to push it off so that I could participate in the conversation.
Okay.
I would go the opposite way. All these people are here. We've heard this and we'd just hear it again.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, you say.
I mean, can we just make motions? And
Well,
just-
it's not even, I don't even know if we need a motion. I think it's like,
Well, I think if we're gonna do anything, we should make, like, there should be a concrete decision of what
Yeah.
we're going to do. Based on the feedback here, at least in terms of greenback, or we're just talking about greenback.
just talking about
There's
greenbacks. right
lots of thoughts on the ordinance.
now.
changes and
Ordinance,
stuff.
yeah. Yeah.
But just talking green bags, I mean, in the absence of having like a good plan for enforcement, I would personally want to make a motion to halt enforcement of the program pending a vote at the town meeting. I think that one of my biggest concerns at the last meeting was every town meeting, it's been kind of close, and so it wasn't exactly clear what the desire was. I think here tonight, there's been comments from both sides, but it's been pretty clear what a lot of the desire was. I would be in favor of that, of halting enforcement of the green bag program.
Which is
So
pretty
you-
much
so
status
You're
quo.
recommending that we continue losing money on each bag
No, I mean,
for the next 10 months.
at the same time, why we buy, well, first of all, 20,000 bags is only like $5,000. So I don't think we're losing that much money on the bags, but
And,
yeah.
and Jeff, I mean, it's a point well taken about the cost, like, we haven't increased the price of the bags ever, I don't think, but I think personally, if we do sort of a straw poll here, and like, I personally am in favor of not doing anything moving forward and putting in a warrant article to rescind the program and trying to figure something else out. And so I think unless we're committed to some like new enforcement or all the things Stephen suggested, which we also, by the way, we have discussed all those things for the last 2 years. I'm just putting that out there. It wasn't like totally new for discussion. I don't understand why we would raise the price of the bags right now, especially because so few people use them. I am one of them, but I think I don't want to discourage people, the few people who are using them, and I don't know what it really gets us. It feels like it's a lot of sort of angst in raising the price of the bags for what? Now, that said, if I'm in the minority here and everyone else wants to take a different path forward, then I would say, yeah, it would make sense to revisit the price.
And,
But there
and
was
I,
a consensus last time. Stephen made a passionate argument for enforcement to see if the program would in fact work.
There was not agreement on that path forward.
yeah, I think after hearing everything tonight, there's probably a majority of the board, agreeing with Sabrina's approach. And I think that one benefit of tonight is education. The word got out there that if you recycle, it saves the town money, it saves you money, and it's good for the environment. So I'm certainly in favor of muddling along for now and supporting a warrant article in next town meeting to do away with green bags and hopefully come out with some other approaches that result in additional recycling and less going into the hopper.
Stephen, I know you have to go soon.
I mean, we did discuss this a lot last time. To Jeff's point, I don't remember there being a majority that agreed with my position last time. And I think everyone was sort of maybe being kind and saying that they were going to have this public input session to get feedback from everyone. I think no matter what, I think we ought to have a warrant article at the meeting in March to figure out or either go forward with this program or to officially terminate it, no matter what we decide tonight. I recognize that the majority of people that at least spoke tonight were against the green bag program. I don't know how much weight to put on people who can show up to one particular select board meeting versus the number of times this has gone before town meeting and not been repealed. But I recognize that tonight in this room, everyone's position is pretty clear that they don't like it. So I'm probably in the minority on this board for wanting to try to implement it before we have some sort of actual definitive town meeting vote on it. But I have to agree with people that I don't think we've really implemented it. We've heard that it just has never been enforced. The price has never been adjusted. Maybe there's more education that can happen. I think that the education has been pretty good. I see the signs at the transfer station, the newer ones that have gone up. I know that my kids at the schools have done recycling programs. And so I think, you know, maybe sure there could be more done in education, but I feel like it's been pretty good. So I guess if you're asking if I personally support a non-enforcement from here until town meeting, I don't think I do, but I recognize that I may be in the minority in that. And if that's the way the board wants to go forward, that's fine. But either way, I think we need an article in March to get a definitive action on what to do about this.
Yeah, and I just want to add that we've had like this very discussion, we had it 2 years ago. To look at data. Your presentation was like
There's
the
like
next
10
frontier
there's
on
like 10
trash.
presentations of
Yeah, I mean, we have really, really talked about this. And so, Stephen, I understand where you're coming from and saying like we haven't necessarily given it a fair try, but I think we actually have. And I think the fact that we've never figured out like a real way to do enforcement, to me, it's like that speaks for itself because we've had this conversation. And I do think, you know, the last time it was voted on at town meeting, I'm pretty sure was 2017. And it was very close, but I don't think we've seen it since then. I think that was the last time it was voted on. And then we had COVID sort of disrupted everything. We put it on hold for a while because of, you know, the pandemic. And I do think when we take public input, it's always balanced with like what we think is best for the town. So I'm always open to hearing from people. I won't always necessarily agree. I think in this case, I knew where I stood beforehand. I was open to listening to everyone. I think overwhelmingly, I'm hearing even outside of this room, people saying like, we're sick of it and it doesn't work. And why do you continue to put this on us? And I think, you know, I haven't heard a single person besides a few people in this room tonight who have been in favor of it. And so it just sort of, I think we're, you know, from my opinion, I'm doing what I think is best for the town at this moment, and hearing from so many people tonight and seeing comments elsewhere and just other conversations, it is overwhelmingly in favor of trying something else. So anyway.
No, yes, Stephen, I see what you're saying. I think my biggest concern coming into this night was that in the absence of having discussion at town meeting, especially because we've had so many votes in the past that have been close, but positive towards green bags, it's hard for me to say we should just stop enforcing it. I think with this over everything we've heard over the last months of talking about this, it's been pretty clear, at least to me, that if we were to have that vote, or if we did have that vote at town meeting, it probably would have been rescinded. And the other thing is that if we are going to continue enforcement, I would say we should do it with the proper bag pricing, which would mean that we would have to, if my expectation is that at the next town meeting, it would be rescinded, then it's hard for me to say we should significantly increase the bag prices and then try to figure out all of the enforcement issues and then hire a part-time person to do it if the expectation is that at the next town meeting it would be rescinded. And so that's why I would like to make a motion that we leave in place the hauler exemption and halt enforcement of the green bag program pending a vote at town meeting. And if at town meeting it does get approved, then I would say we should fully do increased pricing and hire someone to enforce it.
Right. And one of the reasons we held off on addressing the pricing issues, actually a few people who support the green bag program reached out and said, if you raise the price, that's just going to discourage more people from using the program. And so that was one of the reasons we held off. So, all right.
Okay, I want to second your motion, but could you make it a little more concise? Because you made it and then kept going on.
I would like to make a motion that we leave in place the hauler exemption for green bags that was enacted during COVID, and then halt enforcement of the transfer station of green bag use, pending a vote at town meeting to either continue or rescind the green bag program. That was slightly more concise.
I'll second.
So point of clarification. So currently we're not really doing like a ton of proactive enforcement clearly. So what would your comment be to people who currently do use green bags? Is the idea everyone should just stop using them? Or if you're still if you're using them now, continue to use them?
I would encourage people to recycle.
Yeah, So, okay, so we have that motion. We have a second. All right. So we will take a vote now unless there's any other discussion. Okay. All those in favor of Thomas's motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Okay.
Okay, so that's that.
Where did that go?
We just,
We heard, yeah.
Oh, why aren't you raise hands?
Or what?
sorry. So there were three of us in favor of the motion to just basically keep the status quo and then, so pull back on enforcement, even though there's really not a lot of enforcement at the moment.
So
And
Thomas's motion passed.
correct, 3-2. And, yeah,
Can I add one more thing?
please.
I know that the transfer station is understaffed, and I just want to thank all the workers at the transfer station. It's a really hard job. There's a lot of waste that comes in. There's a lot of different issues there. And I just want to thank the people who work there for everything they do.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think we're a small town and, you know, like a lot of things, there's not a lot of economies of scale and they do a really, really good job. And I think we have the added complication of sharing it with another town, which has pros and cons, but I think all in all, it's a really well-run transfer station and appreciate all of the work of the staff and people who run it. All right, so yes, we'll take a little break here and then we have a little bit of other business to conduct. Thank you to everyone who came out tonight. Well, I don't.
Sorry, I got.
You know.
I'm on, so.
I like Norm, but they won't shut up. See you, buddy.
All right, we are back on. We have two items under old business. First is the community power agreement. And we did have Primex review this right now.
We did. They had no comments. They'd seen it numerous times before. Actually, and David is on the board, so if you have any questions, he can probably.
I guess just for the record, Dave Hemingway, Webster, I'm also here because I'm on the chair of not on the chair, on the board of directors for CPC and for the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire.
Great, thank you.
And Webster has adopted this and is currently serving power as Webster Community Power. So I'm happy to answer from either side of any questions you may have.
What
Great.
percentage opted out?
Sorry, I'll move here so that I can see.
That's
you a little
okay. I
better.
Are you
appreciate that.
speaking to the mic so we pick it up on the
You can
recording?
pick it up and sit back down.
That's true.
Just turn it on.
There,
It's not, yeah.
The light should go.
there we go. All right. So for the opt-out percent, I believe the last report I saw is that of a total, we've had about 4.7% opt-out and somewhere around 2 to 3% opt-in, because some people don't get picked up by the automatic sweep. Also people who have had third-party power providers and their contracts expired or they got out of them have then opted in. Because if you're, for example, net metered, if you are commercial or industrial, or if you are on a third-party power provider already, all of those do not get opted in automatically.
Just to expand upon what David said, I had pulled an article about Dover from Foster's Daily Democrat. And out of roughly 12,800 accounts there are 51 users have opted out of the plan.
So this motion has the select board retaining the authority outlined as the authorized officer, which is deciding whether to start. And there was a list of those three things in the agreement. It leaves Mark as the member representative. It leaves Ken as the alternative representative, and it makes me the principal executive officer, which I think just means I get correspondence because you're keeping the authority. And they also ask that we accept that you accept the data security and privacy information and policies, as well as energy portfolio. It's actually risk, not risk management rates and financial reserves policies.
So legal looked at it, they had no comments. Did they have no
Right.
different comments or?
No comment. Primex went through it, and
They have
they
no
always
idea.
have comments, but they had seen it before and this agreement has been vetted so many times by so many places. They were good with it.
I did read it carefully, and there are things, if we were in a negotiating position, that I might nitpick, but in general, I felt okay with it. And I also feel like this has the force of voters at town meeting, voting to adopt, moving forward with community power. So,
And the Community Power Committee has gone over the cost sharing agreement and member services contract and didn't have any issues with it either.
You need a motion for us to adopt this, Neil, and all those other things, data security and.
There's just what's written
Oh,
there.
sorry.
Move.
Wait, one more question. So one of the things is like the projects, forget the name of it. It's the thing where you can do power projects paid for through the rates.
Yes, so you'll notice the financial reserves policies.
Yes.
One of those is a discretionary reserve.
Yes. How many, but those, the discretionary
direct
reserves,
project.
direct projects, thank you. How many direct projects have there been done so far?
There have been none. That the discretionary
That's right.
All right. The other thing under old business is the, thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Dave.
Stormwater Asset Management Grant.
Yes, so. This is, we've been awarded a storm management a stormwater asset management grant, and this authorizes me to sign that grant, which will need governor and council approval. It's just like all the others that we've done through DES.
How much is the grant?
The grant is $30,000, which is the full cost of phase one.
All right.
I'll move that, unless there are questions. I'll move the Hopkinton Select Board with authority to certify actions hereby votes to enter into a Clean Water State Revolving Fund grant agreement with the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services to fund the development and implementation of an asset management program in the town of Hopkinton Stormwater. The Hopkinton Select Board further authorizes Town Administrator Neil A. Cass to execute any documents which may be necessary to effectuate the grant agreement.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All right, it's unanimous 4-0. Okay,
And then we have the one hiring.
Wait.
we have new business.
Oh, can I bring up one thing? Just after this entire super fun time with trash, it might be worth thinking, I mean, so we no longer have a Hopkins Webster Transfer Station Committee, but the transfer station, the way that they're set up, it's been clear that there's been operational things that could probably be improved. And I don't know if we want to put all of that on Jolene. I'm wondering if it's worth thinking about another committee who would be looking at things like, how are we actually going to do enforcement? How are we going to enforce stickers? Is there a way to improve the traffic? How are we going to collect $10 from every truck going in? I don't know if it makes sense, but there's lots of little things that came up through these conversations that are certainly worth looking at and spending time on. And I'm wondering if there's,
How about if you now that committee's officially gone, you let staff bring in a proposal and then go from there
That'd be
before
great.
we put together a committee.
Sounds good.
yeah, if staff has, that's great.
Okay.
Still on, I guess,
New business.
oh, did you have any updates, Neil, or?
Do I have any
No.
updates? No.
Okay, then did you get
I'm
any?
sure something's happened, but I don't remember what.
Fair
No.
enough. Have you gotten more of the audit reports from the town buildings?
No, there's only one more coming, but I haven't not gotten that yet.
Okay.
It's just the police station.
Okay. So we have one non-public session tonight related to hiring. So we'll do that non-public and then we will adjourn and not conduct any other business. We'll be meeting next Monday at 6:30 with the Webster Select Board at the Webster Town Hall. If anyone wants to join us. All right. I will make a motion. We go into non-public under RSA 91A32B. Hiring.
Second.
All right, so roll call. Ken?
Yes.
I mean, yes. Thomas?
Yeah.
Jeff?
Yes.
All right, thank you to everyone